And the news had already reached the Blood Demon Temple Master. At the heart of the Tiansong Eternal Realm, there was a blood-red star field. Within the star field was a blood demon planet. This was the core of the Blood Demon Temple. The Blood Demon Hall also stood here, on the planet, atop a towering mountain peak. The notorious Blood Demon Temple was situated here. Around the Grand Hall, a crimson aura enveloped, similar to the blood sacrifice of the Yongheng clan. But the aura of blood here was even more intense. Inside the hall, a constant leakage of crimson aura occurred. If an ordinary powerhouse were to touch it, they would suffer severe injuries, even death. However, the guards here wore blood-red armor, completely immune to the crimson aura. Inside the hall, everything was crimson, without any adornments. Only at the center there was a blood spring. Within the crimson water, there stood a broad figure. Upon closer inspection, one could see the thick figure, adorned with blood-colored shadows. The figure bathed in the blood spring. Beside the spring, stood an old man in red robes, silent. "How's the matter being investigated?" A voice came from the spring. The old man standing beside quickly bowed. "Master, it's been investigated. The pyramid comes from the ancient moon spacetime." Snap! Blood splattered. The broad figure stood up, instantly donning a black robe. Upon hearing the report, it clearly disturbed his mood. "I underestimated her back then." The figure turned slowly, revealing an extremely heroic face, angular features, thick eyebrows, and a full forehead. He was a rare handsome man. This person was the master of the Blood Demon Temple. The old man in red robes hesitated, then continued, "Master, Yi Lingxiao also comes from the ancient moon spacetime. There might be some connection between these two matters. Do I need you to remind me?" The master of the Blood Demon Temple snorted coldly. "What needs to be done now is to find that pyramid and get rid of her. Understood?" The old man in red robes hesitated for a moment but spoke the truth. "Master, within that pyramid, there are two individuals of unknown strength. It might be difficult. Then find it first. I'll deal with it personally." "Yes." The old man in red robes dared not say more and hurriedly left the blood-red hall. After a while, he returned. The intelligence network of the Blood Demon Temple was incredibly fast. Just as he went down, he received the location of the pyramid. The master of the Blood Demon Temple was also very surprised. He hadn't expected it to be this fast. Tiansong Palace. Upon hearing the location, the master of the Blood Demon Temple sneered, and immediately set off. The Blood Demon Temple ascended into the air. This grand hall had ruled this place for countless ages and had rarely left. Every time the Blood Demon Temple left the blood-red star field, it would lead to slaughter. Even in Tiansong Palace, the master of the Blood Demon Temple still chose to act. If it were any other of the top 5 peak powers, he might have hesitated. But in Tiansong Palace, there was no need for that. Boom! The rising Blood Demon Temple's power was instantly unleashed, and in an instant, it left the blood-red star field and headed towards Tiansong Palace. For Yi Lingxiao, the master of the Blood Demon Temple, was determined. Last time was a mistake not acting personally, and it brought so much trouble. The reason for not personally acting was actually due to concerns. If the master of the Blood Demon Temple personally made a move to capture a woman without any background at the 5th tribulation, it would surely attract the attention of many. However, now it was unnecessary, because acting within the Tiansong Palace, there were people assigned to clean up this mess. This was also why the Blood Demon Temple had such a bad reputation, but no one dared to touch them. Within the Tiansong city, the pyramid had slowed its pace. After all, this was the territory of some ancient existence, not a place where one could recklessly trespass. This time they had come with a request. Giving face was necessary. Wuxia, however, felt that Jian Wushuang was being overly cautious. Now, as long as they wielded the power of life, they were in control. Jian Wushuang, on the other hand, advocated for his own viewpoint. In dealing with the strong, one must still have the heart of a respected individual. One couldn't be overly deferential. Perhaps it was because Realm King owed great favors to the 3 eternal beings. As a disciple of Realm King Wuxia dared to act like this. But Jian Wushuang was different. Besides having the power of life, he was just an ordinary person with peak strength at the 8th tribulation level. He couldn't become a playboy like Wuxia. The pyramid leisurely headed towards the Tiansong Palace, attracting quite a few onlookers along the way. Within the Tiansong city, it was not only practitioners from the Tiansong Palace. There were also geniuses from all over, as well as formidable practitioners living here. Seeing the pyramid appear in this place, they were all curious. They speculated whether the pyramid was the treasure of a super genius from the Tiansong Palace. After all, for a 7 tribulation realm to cross ranks and challenge someone at the 8 tribulation level, it could only be achieved by the most top-tier geniuses. It was an unprecedented and unmatched move. Jian Wushuang and the others hadn't expected that their battle would attract so much attention. After all, Jian Wushuang at the 6th tribulation realm could contend with Qi Jiuxiao. Why didn't that battle cause such a stir back then? Wuxia, how does it feel to become famous after one battle? Dongsheng held up his wine glass, looking at the many strong figures gathered outside because of the pyramid. Look, there are quite a few female cultivators too. This remark made Wang Yan burst into laughter. Jian Wushuang, however, sat cross-legged to the side, ignoring their banter. He was cultivating his own origin source Starry Sky, and further perfecting his super-eternal ancient transformation. It was somewhat difficult to cultivate the super-ancient transformation to perfection. Currently, he had reached a bottleneck. Breaking through wasn't so easy. Once he reached perfection, using the super-eternal ancient transformation, he could almost double his divine power. Right now, it was 2 million. With the perfected super-eternal ancient transformation, it could be amplified to 6 million. Plus the augmentation from the origin source universe. He could easily elevate his strength to the peak level of the 8th tribulation realm. And this didn't even account for the Starry Sky Chronicles. Being able to contend with the peak of the 8th tribulation realm was far from enough. To deal with Mieshang, he must be fully prepared. Otherwise, he would be in danger of losing his life. Weiss wasn't by his side now. He had no trump cards, and his second avatar was also in the Qishan temple. If he died, then he would truly be dead. With pressure comes infinite motivation. Even if it was just a bit of time, he had to seize it to cultivate. However, this peace was shattered just as he had begun to cultivate. Out of respect for the Tiansong Palace, he hadn't spread his thought power too widely. So when a threatening force arrived in front of him, he only then realized it. A bloody figure descended. With a black robe fluttering, the handsome and imposing Blood Demon Temple Master stepped forward, blocking the pyramid's path. If Jian Wushuang's thought power hadn't controlled the pyramid, it would have been impossible to stop it. Yet the Blood Demon Temple Master forcibly halted the pyramid. This was also because the pyramid hadn't activated its peak power. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been stopped. But those details didn't matter. The Blood Demon Temple Master suddenly descended. Instantly, the surrounding powerhouses held their breath. The greatest demon in the Tiansong Eternal Realm, the terrifying Blood Demon Temple Master, who made countless people shudder, unexpectedly appeared here to intercept the pyramid. One side consisted of veteran powerhouses, while the other had gained fame due to the battle on Qianshui planet. These two sides clashed. In an instant, the entire Tiansong Eternal Realm erupted into chaos. I remember now, someone mentioned it before. In the pyramid, there was also a young man carrying a sword. He saved 2 traitors who were being pursued by the Blood Demon Temple. It seems they were Dongsheng and Wang Yan, who have gained some fame recently. A knowledgeable figure in the crowd quickly pointed out the reason for the conflict. Upon hearing this reason, many people still didn't buy it, arguing, just because of 2 universe masters at the 6th tribulation realm, how could it possibly provoke the Lord of the Blood Demon Temple to take action personally? This logic was clearly unconvincing, not to mention the onlookers. Even the parties involved, Wang Yan and Dongsheng, felt incredulous. Seeing the appearance of the Blood Demon Temple Master, their faces turned pale instantly. But Wuxia seemed indifferent, then turned and said, "You may not know my true identity, but don't be afraid. I'll handle him. Jian Wushuang also cooperated by opening the pyramid. The Blood Demon Temple Master was a universe master at the 8th Tribulation Realm. With divine power exceeding tens of millions, he was definitely a peak powerhouse. Facing this great demon, victory could only be achieved through prestige. Wu's would gesture to the crowd and then shouted loudly at the Lord of the Blood Demon Temple, "Do you know who I am?" After speaking, he leaped out of the pyramid and actively charged towards the Blood Demon Temple Master. Not only Dongsheng and Wanyan were astonished by this scene. Even the onlookers frowned. They all thought Wuxia was crazy. A universe master at the 7th Tribulation Realm actively seeking trouble from a universe master at the 8th Tribulation Realm? It was acceptable to defeat 2 universe masters at the 8th Tribulation Realm. But challenging an 8th Tribulation universe master? That was too arrogant. The Blood Demon Temple Master was also taken aback. He didn't recognize Wuxia. He hadn't even bothered with the matter of the Wanlu Divine Tree, because he wasn't interested. He was a universe master and lacked no life force, nor did he lack treasures. Naturally, he didn't recognize Wuxia's identity. In fact, only 3 eternal beings knew his identity. Others were unaware of who he was, and he just charged straight ahead. The Blood Demon Temple Master naturally didn't hold back. With his hand as sharp as a blade, he directly slapped Wuxia fiercely, sending him flying far away. Several towering mountains collapsed before he finally stopped. Has he always been this brave? Blood Demon Temple Master thought there might be some tricks, but apparently not. With divine power of over 6 million, Wuxia seemed like he could be easily defeated in his normal state. Fortunately, Wuxia had plenty of treasures, astonishing defense. Otherwise, this blow would have cost him half his life. After getting up from the pile of rocks, Wuxia roared in anger. After becoming the direct disciple of Realm King, he had never suffered such a setback. Realm King also protected him very well. Although there was training, they were evenly matched opponents. Encountering a true universe master at the 8th Tribulation, who was so ruthless in his actions, woke him up. After wiping off the blood from his face, Wuxia was awakened by this blow. Thinking about it, this was the Tiansong city. He immediately transmitted his voice to one of the ancient existences, Tiansong. If you can't win, move the pieces. Although arrogant, he wouldn't casually reveal the title of Realm King. Messaging took time and arriving even more so. Right now, someone needed to confront them. In truth, he could just hide within the pyramid. Jian Wushuang didn't believe the other party could break through the pyramid. Unfortunately, the pyramid couldn't absorb attacks now. Otherwise, the stronger the attack, the more it could absorb. Wuxia, come back! With a wave of his hand, a metal plate beneath the pyramid actively retrieved Wuxia. Hiding wasn't his style. If it were Qi Juxiao outside, he could endure. But a universe master at the 8th Tribulation wouldn't make him avoid a fight. The other party rushed here to intercept. That was unexpected. But he understood the Blood Demon Temple Master's intentions. There was a secret within Yi Lingxiao's body. The blood-colored aura of the Blood Demon Temple Master was very similar. This guy came for this. But daring to intercept them in the Tiansong city. That was somewhat arrogant. Showing no respect for any eternal beings. Was it a bet on which eternal being wasn't in the Tiansong city? Stretching his shoulders, Jian Wushuang didn't dwell on it further, instructing Wuxia, "I'll go out to meet him. Don't come out." Wushuang. Wanyan's expression was somewhat anxious. In their conversations over the past few days, they had learned that Jian Wushuang was merely a universe master at the 6th Tribulation. Going out now was too dangerous. Even though Jian Wushuang's strength was incredible and he could fight beyond his level, this was pushing it too far. Yiling Xiao, standing aside, blinked. Just before Jian Wushuang left, she spoke up voluntarily, "Wait." Jian Wushuang paused for a moment, but it was just a hesitation, leaving behind a resolute statement as he departed. "Wait for me." Just that simple sentence eased everyone's minds. As Jian Wushuang left the pyramid, a hint of a smile appeared on his face. The fact that Yi Lingxiao could call him back at the last moment was enough. If he had kept hiding it, one could suspect his character. In this crucial moment, willingly speaking up proved character. It was also to test the other's bottom line. Now it seemed Wanyan's judgment was correct. He could handle what came next. Even if he couldn't win, he could retreat into the pyramid. He could leave at any time or continue towards the Tiansong Palace. The initiative was with Jian Wushuang, so there was no need to panic. Seeing a man with a sword suddenly appear, the Blood Demon Temple Master knew this was the ancient moon spacetime expert who saved Yi Lingxiao. Surrender her, and I can spare your life. Jian Wushuang snorted. Are you qualified to ask me? With these words, the Blood Demon Temple Master didn't obstruct the pyramid anymore. He faced Jian Wushuang from a distance and burst into laughter. Talking about qualifications with him, this was the first time someone had said that to him. The onlookers also turned their attention to Jian Wushuang at this moment. But they couldn't sense Jian Wushuang's aura. The Blood Demon Temple Master was the same. But intuition told him that Jian Wushuang's divine power wasn't very strong. This feeling couldn't be blocked. Unless it was a star spirit, like Weiss becoming a transparent person, yet terrifying in battle. At that level, Jian Wushuang couldn't even imagine it. The Blood Demon Temple Master and the onlookers hadn't seen the so-called star spirit, so they thought Jian Wushuang must be using some kind of incredible treasure to conceal his aura. Everyone waited for Jian Wushuang's outburst. Even the Blood Demon Temple Master. Even Wu Zuo was knocked down with a single move. But Jian Wushuang dared to come out for a battle. Many still had considerable confidence in him. The Blood Demon Temple Master was also curious about Jian Wushuang's strength. Through the Blood Demon Temple's intelligence network, he hadn't been able to uncover Jian Wushuang's background. He knew a few well-known 8th Tribulation Realm experts in the ancient moon spacetime, like Divine Wood King, who had once again established the Divine Wood sect. Although he was a scattered tribulation, he had followed the newly ascended God of Life. And the recently revealed divine power effortlessly surpassed 15 million. He was the top expert in the entire northern spacetime. Then there was the Lord of the Ancient Moon Sect, the Universe Master of the 8th Tribulation Realm, and the ruler of the Ancient Moon Spacetime. His strength was unfathomable. Apart from these individuals, there were few formidable figures in the Ancient Moon Spacetime that made him wary. For Jian Wushuang, this unknown expert, he was only curious. But he also set a limit in his heart. At least, he must be at the level of the 8th Tribulation Realm. Wu Zuo was the Universe Master of the 7th Tribulation Realm, with combat power reaching the pinnacle of the 8th Tribulation Realm. Yet he was defeated, and still dared to engage with him. So Jian Wushuang's strength must be at least at the pinnacle of the 8th Tribulation Realm, or even surpass it. Under everyone's curious gaze, Jian Wushuang's aura disappeared quietly. His divine power and origin source were fully revealed. With a divine power of 1.5 million, he was at the realm of the 6th Tribulation. Unintentionally revealed. If someone saw Jian Wushuang in this state on a normal day, they might be surprised. Surprised that a 6th Tribulation realm could possess a divine power of 1.5 million. The origin source even reached the level of the 8th Tribulation realm. Now, people were still surprised. Just surprised that Jian Wushuang was too weak. Weak without self-awareness. A 6th Tribulation realm, even with a divine power of 1.5 million, and an origin source comparable to the Universe Master of the 8th Tribulation realm. But it also depended on who he was facing. That was the Blood Demon Temple Master. The onlookers in the distance couldn't help but sweat for Jian Wushuang. A 6th Tribulation realm? Is he insane? Many couldn't help but exclaim. Originally, they thought Wu Zuo was crazy enough. A Universe Master of the 7th Tribulation realm taking the initiative against a Universe Master of the 8th Tribulation realm. Now, after seeing Jian Wushuang's true strength, they understood. It was like a junior challenging a senior. People coming out of the pyramid seemed to be getting weaker and weaker, making this peak showdown seem somewhat ridiculous. Seeing Jian Wushuang in this state, the Blood Demon Temple Master was momentarily stunned, then couldn't help but laugh. Are you planning to defeat me with just your eyes? While he said this, he was speculating about Jian Wushuang's trump card. A Universe Master of the 6th Tribulation realm dared to fight him. Was it because of his background? Or was he really foolish? He wasn't afraid of backgrounds. And fools he was even less afraid of. In the Tiansong eternal realm, he had never worried about being suppressed by others' backgrounds. Jian Wushuang floated in the air, paying no attention to those gazes. Indeed, I've weakened a bit. Even he couldn't help but shake his head. The few people in the pyramid also worried about Jian Wushuang. Wushuang has gone mad, hasn't he? How dare he? Dongshang couldn't believe his eyes seeing Jian Wushuang so calm and composed. At this moment, Wuzhua also grew a bit concerned. Though he knew Jian Wushuang was slightly stronger than himself, there were limits to his strength. Nevertheless, he tried to reassure everyone, saying, "Don't worry. I've already sent a message to Tiansong. He'll be here soon, and this blood demon temple master won't be able to frolic for much longer." The three individuals, who were somewhat blurry to Realm King and the ancient existence, could only nod. Outside, a crimson storm began to sweep through. Enough with the nonsense. If that's all you've got, then prepare to meet your end. The blood demon temple master raised his hand, gathering a crimson storm and charging towards Jian Wushuang. At the core of the crimson storm lay over 8 million units of divine power. Enough to kill even the top-tier experts of the 8th tribulation. With the storm unleashed, everyone believed Jian Wushuang was doomed without a doubt. Even Wu Zua and others inside the pyramid held their breath. In that instant, they began to recall whether Jian Wushuang had truly gone insane. They worried that Jian Wushuang might have played himself to death. If he were to fall like that, it would be too unfair. Most of the onlookers, ordinary experts though they were, couldn't grasp the full power contained within the Crimson Storm, but they understood that this strike would bring down even the ordinary 8th Tribulation Realm experts. He's done for. So reckless. He could have stayed hidden in that pyramid and might have been able to hold on for a while. But no, he had to provoke the Blood Demon Temple Master. He's done for this time. It wasn't a matter of not having faith in Jian Wushuang anymore. It was about believing that he couldn't even withstand a single move and was about to perish. Even Wu Zua would probably fall. The Blood Demon Temple Master, however, didn't think so much. With a casual strike, he was already determined to kill Jian Wushuang. And feeling a bit aggrieved that he was intimidated by the Universe Master of the 6th Tribulation Realm before him, he unleashed an even more ruthless attack. As countless eyes watched, a miracle unfolded. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, clenched his fists, let out a low growl, and underwent a tremendous transformation in his aura. A blue aura burst out from within him, crackling with electricity, forming a huge sphere. His divine power surged from 1.5 million to over 5 million in an instant. At the same time, an elliptical universe descended. His divine power surged once again, reaching 7 million. Facing the Crimson Storm, he slowly raised his hand. Clang! The Wanjia sword emerged. With just one sword strike, he cleaved the Crimson Storm in two, easily dispelling the Blood Demon Temple Master's casual attack. This scene stunned everyone. Even the Blood Demon Temple Master found it hard to believe. For countless years, he had not only never seen such a thing but hadn't even heard of such an existence. A Universe Master of the 6th Tribulation Realm who could effortlessly achieve the power comparable to the top tier of the 8th Tribulation Realm with just one sword. If word got out, even the Universe Masters of the 8th Tribulation Realm might feel like banging their heads against a wall. Who are you? The Blood Demon Temple Master furrowed his brow, thinking of the northern spacetime and that mysterious place. The Realm God Continent. All three ancient existences had been there. And many legendary 8 Tribulations experts had also practiced there. But entering the Realm God Continent required the Realm God Order. This kind of thing couldn't be obtained just because one wished for it. Even for ancient existences, they only had one. They couldn't bring others into the Realm God Continent. So that place appeared extremely mysterious among the 8th Tribulation Realm. Not only did only 8 Tribulations experts enter, but there were also rumors that not long ago, a Universe Master of the 7th Tribulation had left the Realm God Continent and entered the northern spacetime. But this didn't match up with Jian Wushuang at all. Although Jian Wushuang was heaven-defying, His realm was still that of a universe master of the sixth tribulation realm. Not only that, he also possessed the universe Tao arena. He didn't make a move until now, but when he did, he amazed everyone. Just the fact that a universe master of the sixth tribulation realm could summon the universe Tao arena shocked everyone. Universe Tao arena, that required transferring the origin source universe into the divine body. Only those at the eighth tribulation could achieve it. The principle was actually quite simple. It involved the divine body merging with the origin source universe to reach a highly compatible state. Universe's masters below the eighth tribulation couldn't accomplish it. Because of this, many couldn't accept that a universe master at the sixth tribulation could achieve it. Around Jian Wushuang and the Blood Demon Temple Lord, numerous powerful beings had gathered. Many were from the Tiansong Palace, with some even at the eighth tribulation. However, none from the Tiansong Palace moved to intervene. After Wu's were relayed the message, it was apparent that reinforcements from Tiansong were on their way. But it would take some time. Moreover, Wu's didn't make it clear in his message that they were already in the Tiansong city. It was all because of Divine Wood King, establishing a sect, pulling 3 eternal beings to bolster his own prestige. Otherwise, Tiansong would have returned to the Tiansong Eternal Realm long ago. As he rushed back, he also transmitted a message to the Blood Demon Temple Lord. Don't touch them. Just those 3 simple words made the Blood Demon Temple Master hesitate to act. Even if Tiansong hadn't warned him, he wouldn't dare to act anymore. Jian Wushuang's revealed strength was nothing extraordinary. But on a universe master at the sixth tribulation, it was remarkable. To be so powerful at the sixth tribulation, his background must be immense. So the Blood Demon Temple Master immediately inquired about Jian Wushuang's identity. Jian Wushuang remained calm. Just an insignificant nobody, not worth mentioning. With that, he retrieved the Wanjia sword. That one sword had stunned everyone present. The Blood Demon Temple Master refrained from acting as well. He no longer had any reason to be uptight. An insignificant nobody? The Blood Demon Temple Master gritted his teeth. He really wanted to act, but he didn't dare to disobey Tiansong's orders. Yi Lingxiao. A greedy glint appeared in the Blood Demon Temple Master's eyes. Greed overcame fear. While he wouldn't act against Jian Wushuang, there was no prohibition against attacking others. He knew Yi Lingxiao's background well. There were no reservations. As long as he bypassed Jian Wushuang, it would be fine. If necessary, he could suppress Jian Wushuang first. But Yi Lingxiao must be captured. Since you're unwilling to speak, then I won't ask anymore. But Yi Lingxiao must be mine. After saying this, the Blood Demon Temple Master flashed past Jian Wushuang at lightning speed towards the pyramid. Jian Wushuang remained unmoved. He even watched the Blood Demon Temple Master attacking the pyramid as if watching a fool. Inside the pyramid, Wuxia and the others saw the Blood Demon Temple Master continuously attacking the pyramid, but they didn't feel any divine power, not even a tremor. The sound of the attacks was also blocked. Inside remained as calm as ever. While Wuxia and the others were confident in the pyramid's defenses, they didn't expect it to be so astonishingly resilient. Those bystanders, some puzzled, couldn't understand why the Blood Demon Temple Master bypassed Jian Wushuang and kept attacking the pyramid. Among them were some insightful experts who calmly remarked, although the Blood Demon Temple Master fears no one in the Tiansong Eternal Realm, there are still concerns. It's wise not to take action against the mysterious swordsman. Attacking the pyramid now must be to seize someone. Many nodded in agreement with this analysis. It sounded reasonable. Jian Wushuang remained relaxed, standing at a distance, watching as the Blood Demon Temple Master attacked the pyramid. The Crimson Storm continued to rage. The divine power surged, quickly surpassing tens of millions. The peak strength of the Blood Demon Temple Master was around 12 million. He was already at the pinnacle of the eighth tribulation. Yet he couldn't shake the pyramid in the slightest. This further crushed the Blood Demon Temple Master's spirit. First, there was a swordsman erupting with eighth tribulation power from the sixth tribulation. Then there was this silver pyramid. No matter how he attacked, he couldn't budge it. Conventional attacks failing, he mobilized the Blood Demon Temple, trying to suppress the pyramid. The Blood Demon Temple was a supreme treasure at the pinnacle of the 8th Tribulation realm. Suppressing ordinary treasures was effortless. Even treasures of the same level could be suppressed and trapped. As long as he could suppress it, he could open this pyramid. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but remind, Blood Demon Temple Master, don't waste your energy. This pyramid is a treasure of the 9th Tribulation. Your pile of scrap metal won't be able to suppress it. The 9th Tribulation. The Blood Demon Temple Master was completely shattered. No wonder no matter how he attacked, there was no response. A treasure of the 9th Tribulation. If he could blast it open, that would be strange. Moreover, the Silver Pyramid was crafted by the Southern Spacetime's metallic brain. In the Southern Spacetime, metallic lifeforms were predominant. They had the most research into crafting treasures. Among 9th Tribulation treasures, this Silver Pyramid was the top. It was much more powerful than 9th Tribulation treasures in the Northern Spacetime. For the Blood Demon Temple Master to be able to break it, he would at least need to be a peak 9th Tribulation expert. But in the Northern Spacetime, where would one find 9th Tribulation experts? 9th Tribulation treasures were rare, let alone experts. This wasn't like the Moro Spacetime back then. The Moro Spacetime had spacetime treasures because of Mieshang's influence. The higher heavens of the Wanlu universe had quite a few 9th Tribulation treasures. Even spacetime treasures, like the Skysite Heavenly Chessboard. In fact, upon careful consideration, Jian Wushuang could deduce that teacher Xianxia came from the Starry Sky, because the Skysite Heavenly Chessboard originally existed in the Starry Sky. It was transmitted to the Moro Spacetime through Mieshang, initially obtained by the first true king, and eventually ended up in his hands. Despite the 9 major spacetimes upstream being much more powerful than the Moro Spacetime, they didn't have true spacetime treasures. They only had universal treasures at the 9th Tribulation level. That was because of the Realm God Continent, transmitted from the Realm God Continent. So in terms of treasures, the Moro Spacetime was still formidable. But this also brought unprecedented calamities. Mieshang was a big problem. Why bother? Jian Wushuang shook his head. Blood Demon Temple Master, I vouch for this person. Even if Senior Tiansong comes, you won't be able to touch her. Upon hearing the words Tiansong, the Blood Demon Temple Master's expression changed. He turned to look at Jian Wushuang, his gaze filled with dread and jealousy. Following that was the descent of a massive blood-colored Dao arena. That was the Blood Demon Temple Master's origin source Dao arena. It was the origin source universe. With the Dao arena's descent, the Blood Demon Temple Master's divine power erupted once again. From around 12 million, it surged to about 14 million. The divine power shook the entire Tiansong city. If this place weren't the core of the eternal realm, the spacetime might have been shattered. It's over. The Blood Demon Temple Master is about to go mad. Among the onlookers, a universe lord from the Tiansong Palace, a peak expert of the 7th Tribulation, couldn't help but retreat. Even the aftermath of attacks by 8th Tribulation peak experts was unbearable for them. For a moment, everyone backed away once again. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but step back. This Blood Demon Temple Master has good potential. Why bother pursuing the blood-red power? He couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps only he and the Blood Demon Temple Master knew the secret of Yi Lingxiao. Because initially, this blood-colored power had helped him quite a bit. The casual impression was very profound. The Blood Demon Temple Master's goals were similar to his. Both wanted to use the power of blood color to forcibly enhance their basic divine power. The Blood Demon Temple Master's current basic divine power could reach tens of millions, to the point where ordinary divine power techniques had no effect on him. He needed divine power techniques of the 9th Tribulation realm. But in the Northern Spacetime, there was no 9th Tribulation realm. So he set his sights on the Realm God Continent. That avenue didn't work out. Finally, he set his sights on the power of blood, to forcibly enhance his own basic divine power. Without divine power techniques, he wanted to raise his divine power to the limit of the 8 Tribulations realm. This was also a kind of cultivation method. Jian Wushuang possessed the super-eternal ancient transformation, which could achieve the greatest amplification. He was never hungry after being full. He didn't understand the 8 Tribulations realm experts who didn't have peak divine power techniques. This was also normal. After all, they were not gods. They could only watch as the Blood Demon Temple Master attacked the pyramid like a madman. Divine power continuously poured out. The Blood Demon Temple Master attacked for a full 15 minutes before stopping. Exhausted. He was somewhat despondent. Could it be that I really can't surpass my father? The Blood Demon Temple Master staggered back. Inside the pyramid. Upon seeing this scene, Wuxia breathed a sigh of relief. Looks like it's time to give up. Although they couldn't feel the power of the attack, they were afraid the opponent could break in. What's this? Dongxing noticed a blood-colored crystal above the pyramid, flashing continuously. Upon hearing Dongxing's words, Wuxia also looked over. The red triangular crystal kept flashing, and the light grew brighter. Could it be that it can't hold on anymore? Wuxia slowly rose up, approached, and carefully studied it. Worried that the pyramid couldn't bear it, he reached out to touch it. Just as he touched it, the pyramid began to tremble. The silver pyramid, which had been attacked by the Blood Demon Temple Master with impunity, suddenly shook at this moment. Not only Wuxia and the others were shocked. Even Jian Wushuang outside widened his eyes. Feeling a sinking feeling in his heart, he quickly transmitted his voice to Wuxia to inquire about the situation inside the pyramid. A red crystal? Jian Wushuang heard Wuxia's words and was puzzled. He knew very little about the pyramid. When it was intact, he had only seen it a few times from the outside. Later, when he entered to kill the metallic light brain, he didn't have time to investigate. Suddenly, there was a change, and he couldn't figure out what was happening. All he could do was to comfort Wuxia and the others, telling them not to touch anything randomly. The Blood Demon Temple Master saw the pyramid shaking but showed a surprised expression, thinking that his attack had worked. He immediately erupted with divine power again and continued to attack the pyramid. But he didn't notice that the top of the pyramid had turned red by now. A mighty red beam of light was converging there. That power had once severely injured Qi Jiuxiao. Mind you, Qi Jiuxiao had reached the 9th Tribulation Realm level. Anyone hit by that blow would feel pain, let alone someone at the peak of the 8th Tribulation Realm. However, the Blood Demon Temple Master paid no attention to this and kept attacking recklessly. It wasn't his fault. It was because the red beam of light had no divine power aura at all. It was colorless and odorless. While the Blood Demon Temple Master continued to attack the pyramid relentlessly, suddenly, the red beam of light erupted. Like a flowing light, it directly surged towards the Blood Demon Temple Master's chest. If this blow landed, the Blood Demon Temple Master would undoubtedly perish. Upon seeing the red beam of light, Jian Wushuang's first reaction was to flee. He had experienced the power of that light beam before. Even from a distance, one could feel its scorching sensation. After the eruption, the red beam of light exposed its divine power. The terrifying divine power had already surpassed 20 million. The Blood Demon Temple Master was completely stunned. He had never seen such immense divine power before. He stood there motionless. Jian Wushuang only cared about fleeing for himself. He didn't care at all whether the Blood Demon Temple Master died. It would be futile even if he died. He had already said that the pyramid was a treasure of the 9th Tribulation Realm, unbreakable. The other party didn't believe it, but what could he do? The powerful beings watching the battle felt the sound of space-time shattering. Then, the sky was covered by the red light. What happened afterward was unknown. Jian Wushuang also fled in panic. Although his telekinesis was observing, it was shattered by the red beam of light. Only Wuxia and the others inside the pyramid could see clearly. Just as the red beam of light was about to kill the Blood Demon Temple Master, a majestic figure appeared. The shattered space-time instantly restored. Space-time forged eternity. The majestic figure pushed the Blood Demon Temple Master away. He stood alone in front of the red beam of light. Because there was no time, he could only resist it head-on. The majestic figure struggled to block with both hands. He felt his divine body being crushed. His hands had disappeared, and his divine body had been severely damaged. But he managed to barely block the red beam of light. Inside the pyramid, Wuxia and the others were stunned by the scene before them. They hadn't expected the power of the red beam of light to be so strong. Although Dongshang and the others didn't know who was blocking the attack for the Blood Demon Temple Master, they understood that if that blow had hit him, he would surely have perished. The one who voluntarily helped the Blood Demon Temple Master must be even more powerful than him. Wuxia was familiar with the person in front of him, because not long ago he had been introduced to him by Realm King. He was the true master of the Tiansong Eternal Realm. Elder Tiansong. The majestic figure turned out to be an old man in his 70s. Seeing this, Wuxia also realized. No wonder after he communicated with Elder Tiansong, the Blood Demon Temple Master didn't attack Jian Wushuang. Turned out they had some sort of deal, helping the Blood Demon Temple Master withstand this blow at the cost of severe injuries. Even a fool could see that their relationship was extraordinary, and judging by their appearances they were likely father and son. As the power dissipated, the sky returned to calm. Elder Tiansong's hands also recovered, but he didn't pay attention to the Blood Demon Temple Master behind him. Instead, he nodded towards the inside of the pyramid and shouted, "Brother Wuxia?" His tone was extremely playful, as if he was teasing a child. Wuxia, at this moment, also stuck his head out, not looking at Elder Tiansong but first casting a glance at the Blood Demon Temple Master. Obviously, he was suspicious of whether it was safe at the moment. Seeing this, Elder Tiansong hurriedly apologized. "I'm late. I made my son act rudely in front of Senior." Cough, cough. Seeing this, Wuxia directly walked out of the pyramid, his step steady, his demeanor arrogant. He glanced at Elder Tiansong with an unsightly expression and said, "You're not a son, you're a dragon son. You've become an 8th tribulation realm at such a young age, outstanding among your peers." Elder Tiansong knew that Wuxia was being sarcastic. He was still resenting the rudeness of the Blood Demon Temple Master just now, especially that chop which nearly split Wuxia's face in half. "Why are you still standing there? Why don't you hurry up and apologize to your senior brother?" Elder Tiansong turned around angrily and shouted. Seeing that the Blood Demon Temple Master was still somewhat defiant, he raised his hand and slapped the other's head. The sound was crisp. "Uncle Master." These two words reminded the Blood Demon Temple Master. In the entire northern spacetime, there were not many people who could make his father show such respect, except for those gods. And the legendary Realm King. Ordinary gods were okay. They didn't have much power and were not as influential as Elder Tiansong. But Realm King was different. Elder Tiansong had always been called the Realm King's named disciple. Now calling Wuxia Uncle Master, he suddenly woke up. He looked at Wuxia with a look of disbelief. "What? Do I have flowers on my face?" Wuxia made a fierce face at the Blood Demon Temple Master. Elder Tiansong turned to the Blood Demon Temple Master and gave him a stern look. Only at this moment did the Blood Demon Temple Master accept reality. He obediently stood behind Elder Tiansong, bowing respectfully to apologize to Wuxia. This scene stunned everyone. Elder Tiansong appeared. Those onlookers recognized the majestic figure. And seeing this eternal being of the Tiansong Eternal Realm being extremely polite to Wuxia and scolding the Blood Demon Temple Master, they were even more surprised. The Blood Demon Temple Master, as the person involved, was even more astonished. He never thought that Wuxia would be related to Realm King. If it were Jian Wushuang, he wouldn't have been so out of line. Jian Wushuang, who was standing in the distance, slowly flew over. "Tiansong Senior, I've caused you trouble this time." Jian Wushuang didn't put on airs, but greeted this legendary figure of the northern spacetime in a plain tone. Elder Tiansong knew Jian Wushuang, the peerless genius with the power of life, the key figure in the Wanlu. In the northern spacetime, Jian Wushuang's reputation was extremely loud. After all, he possessed the power of life. That was like a moving treasure trove. But no one dared to attract Jian Wushuang's attention. Elder Tiansong was the same, smiling and saying, "I didn't expect Brother Wushuang to be here too. It really adds luster to my Tiansong domain. If those scattered tribulations knew, they would probably trample my threshold." As he said this, he had already blocked the surrounding spacetime. The onlookers outside didn't know what they were talking about. But the Blood Demon Temple Master listened carefully. After recognizing the person in front of him as Jian Wushuang, he was greatly moved. Nowadays, among the few strong figures in the northern spacetime, he had offended almost all of them. Fortunately, he wasn't a scattered tribulation. Otherwise, he would regret it. The reason why Jian Wushuang could be so influential in the northern spacetime was his control over the power of life, his pinnacle strength of the 8th tribulation realm. Ordinary scattered tribulations were not enough to look at him. Furthermore, he could use the power of life to exchange for anything. If Jian Wushuang wished, he could buy half of the northern spacetime with his power of life. In the northern spacetime, at least 70% of practitioners were scattered tribulations, with only 30% being universe masters. This was also the reason for the continuous growth of the northern spacetime recently. Previously, having a 20% share would have been considered good. Although Jian Wushuang knew his weight, he was not as arrogant as Wuxia. Instead, he was very low-key. Facing Elder Tiansong, he also showed respect. Even though the other party praised him, he modestly replied, "Senior Tiansong, you overpraise me. I am just a universe master of the 6th tribulation. A mere gleam compared to the sun and moon." Elder Tiansong chuckled at Jian Wushuang's words, thinking that Jian Wushuang was much easier to talk to than Wuxia. The 3 eternal beings were indeed worthy of respect. Just from the explosion inside the pyramid earlier, which could injure the former Qi Zhouxiao, Elder Tiansong's divine power only decreased slightly under resistance. That is to say, the opponent's divine power was probably at the level comparable to the 9th tribulation realm, not much different from Qi Zhouxiao at the time. Ancient existences were not necessarily of the 9th tribulation realm. This Elder Tiansong had already known from Realm King. Speaking of which, the first powerhouse of the 9th tribulation realm in the northern spacetime was created by Babidi, possessing the powerful strength of the 9th tribulation realm. Incredibly strong. During the Wanlu, he was almost beaten up by Qi Zhouxiao. In the end, he only managed to turn the tables with the help of the Danbao. And it wasn't even a direct defeat. Could be imagined how terrifying Qi Zhouxiao's strength was. Even in the entire northern spacetime, countless strong figures had to join forces to contend against him. Fortunately, he had now been suppressed by the immortal divine temple of Danbao. Otherwise, it would have been a big trouble. Elder Tiansong had introduced them enough and also realized that Jian Wushuang and the others had come to his Tiansong domain probably for some business. So he took the initiative and said, "Since you've come to my territory, why don't we continue our conversation in my cave?" Excellent. Jian Wushuang felt a surge of delight within him. He thought it was good to maintain Wu's face. Originally, he had thought it might be troublesome to rashly seek help from an eternal being. But it turned out to be so smooth. Elder Tiansong smiled faintly. "Please." After saying that, he took the lead and headed towards the core of Tiansong domain, the Tiansong Palace. Jian Wushuang gathered the pyramid, enveloped Wuxia and the others with his thought power, and followed Elder Tiansong directly. After they left, those onlookers, unable to see the fight, naturally dispersed. However, after this battle, the reputation of the pyramid became even more miraculous. The Lord of the Blood Demon Temple also followed beside Elder Tiansong. It's more like being carried along by Elder Tiansong than following him. Such speed. Elder Tiansong turned his head and smiled at Jian Wushuang and the others, but he was somewhat shocked in his heart. Originally, he thought Jian Wushuang would use the pyramid to follow him. Relying on the speed of the treasure, he could keep up with him. But unexpectedly, without the treasure, they could still match his speed. Jian Wushuang, on the other hand, had no reservations. The northern spacetime was no longer a threat to him, and he had already exposed his speed in the Wanlu spacetime, so many people had seen it. There was no point in trying to hide. The most important reason was that he felt it would be impolite to fly with the treasure while the owner of this place led them in flight. The group moved at an extremely fast speed. In just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they arrived at Tiansong Palace. The entire Tiansong Palace exuded an ancient aura. Passed down through generations, it had experienced countless eras. But Tiansong Palace remained eternal. Inside the core of Tiansong Palace, the Jade Tree Hall, preparations were underway for a grand banquet. Hurry up! The Patriarch's guests will be here soon. Move faster! A middle-aged man in luxurious clothing was directing the servants' arrangements in a somewhat impatient manner. His identity was not simple either. He was one of the descendants of Elder Tiansong, possessing extremely strong bloodline power. Now, as the universe master of the seventh tribulation realm, he was also the most powerful figure of his generation within the Tiansong Palace. Presently, he was giving orders to his subordinates to receive guests for the Patriarch. It was evident that Patriarch Tiansong had elevated the protocol for Jian Wushuang and the others' arrival to the highest level. Before long, hearty laughter echoed from a distance. Sensing the Patriarch's presence, he quickly dismissed his attendants, a smile adorning his face as he walked out. Grandson, Yu Wuji pays respects to the Patriarch and to all the seniors. However, when he raised his head to look at the distinguished guests behind the Patriarch, he froze. At the forefront was a universe master of the seventh tribulation realm, emitting an aura similar to his own. Behind him were 3 universe masters of the sixth tribulation realm and a common woman. For a moment, he was bewildered, unable to discern who the honored guests were. At this moment, behind the Patriarch, he sensed a powerful figure whose bloodline power bore a striking resemblance to his own. The Lord of the Blood Demon Temple, a universe master of the 8th tribulation realm. The restrained aura made Yu Wuji realize the identity of the other party. After recognizing him, his expression eased slightly. If it weren't for the Patriarch's presence, he might have directly shown displeasure. This subtle change didn't escape Jian Wushuang's notice, but he paid it no mind. They were both aware of the relationship between the Blood Demon Temple Master and Elder Tiansong. The reason for the lack of rumors in the outside world was probably a scandal they preferred to keep quiet. Patriarch Tiansong introduced cheerfully, Senior Brother Wuxia, Junior Jian Wushuang. This is Yu Wuji, my junior disciple, considered one of the most outstanding individuals of our generation. Not bad at all. Your peak divine power is probably around 2.5 million. Wuxia nodded approvingly, offering his evaluation. Hearing the Patriarch addressing the seventh tribulation universe master so respectfully, and even calling him senior brother, left Yu Wuji deeply shaken. Moreover, the Patriarch openly stated his true strength. A distinguished guest was indeed distinguished. Their perspective and strength were extraordinary. All right, let's take our seats. Patriarch Tiansong gestured for everyone to enter the Jade Tree Hall. Wuxia was the first to walk in without ceremony. Jian Wushuang and the others followed suit. The moment they entered the Jade Tree Hall, they felt a wave of relaxation wash over them. Their souls felt completely empty, and their mental faculties became highly active. This was largely due to the presence of the origin source within the hall. Senior Tiansong, if I'm not mistaken, within this jade tree, there should be a strand of tree soul, and it's at the 8th tribulation realm level. Jian Wushuang approached the jade tree, carefully examining it before remarking on its uniqueness. Patriarch Tiansong didn't respond directly, but instead signaled to Yu Wuji with his eyes. Yu Wuji immediately understood. He stepped forward and explained the origin of the jade tree to Jian Wushuang and the others, taking the opportunity to flatter Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang felt somewhat embarrassed by this. Yu Wuji, a universe master of the 7th tribulation realm, addressing him and his seniors in such a deferential manner, made him somewhat self-conscious. Although his strength far surpassed Yu Wuji's, there was still a considerable difference in their realms. After all, Yu Wuji was a universe master of the 7th tribulation realm, while he was only of the 6th tribulation realm. He felt somewhat disrespectful. Deciding not to dwell on it, he quietly took his seat. He sat on the left side of Patriarch Tiansong. He needed to make a request later, so he couldn't sit too far away and thus couldn't speak up. Wuxia sat in the seat of honor. Next to Wuxia was Yu Wuji. Yu Wuji, sitting beside Wuxia, poured wine for him and introduced the delicacies on the table. All of this was surely prompted by Elder Tiansong. The reason was simple. Jian Wushuang saw through it and took the initiative to chat with Elder Tiansong. Knowing that Wuxia was not serious in his speech, Elder Tiansong was also willing to converse with Jian Wushuang. As for the others, they were more reserved. Especially the Blood Demon Temple Master. After entering the Jade Tree Hall, he felt uncomfortable all over, and he sat at the end, ignored by everyone. Even Dongsheng and Wanyan sat in front of him, making the dignified Blood Demon Temple Master sit in the corner. Perhaps only the Tiansong Palace had such capability. Yu Wuji and Wuxia were chatting and boasting, talking about the recent battle. Hearing that the Blood Demon Temple Master dared to make a move against Wuxia, seizing the opportunity, he ruthlessly criticized the Blood Demon Temple Master verbally. Wuxia was very pleased with this. Obviously, he remembered that slap very deeply. Despite his superficial frivolity, his heart was like a mirror. He knew why these people were so respectful. He was only a universe master at the 7th Tribulation Realm. The most important reason Elder Tiansong treated him so cautiously was his relationship with the Realm King. At the same time, he was also the Realm King's direct disciple and would become a super powerhouse in the future. Because of these reasons, he received respect. The latter wasn't important. Becoming a super powerhouse had nothing to do with them. The three eternal beings all had the ability to reach the 9th Tribulation Realm. It's just that the northern spacetime couldn't bear it. And they had all entered the Realm God continent and had the most experience. Knowing that the appearance of the God of Life would elevate the entire northern spacetime's life force, they would be able to break through then. After the breakthrough, they would continue to explore the Realm God continent. Returning to the northern spacetime now was solely because they couldn't advance in the Realm God continent. They had returned to their home spacetime, waiting for the appearance of the God of Life. They could be said to be the first group of cultivators who benefited from the Realm God continent. They were the most dependent on the Realm God continent. After entering the Realm God continent, they had grown to their limits. They wanted to send the younger generation to cultivate in the Realm God continent as well. Wanting to go to the Realm God continent required the crucial Realm God order. Only Realm King possessed such a thing. So they flattered the Realm King's direct disciple, Wuxia. The Blood Demon Temple Master also bowed to Wuxia because of this. Yu Wuji, after learning about Wuxia's identity, became even more attentive. Everything was for benefits. Actually, this wasn't considered a bad thing. It was just troublesome. Wuxia was only vague in expression about this, but he was disdainful in his heart. Wanting to obtain the Realm God Order was actually quite easy. As long as one made significant contributions to the northern spacetime, they could obtain it. For example, when Jian Wushuang and others helped Danbao become the God of Life. Everyone who came out alive from the Wanlu universe got a Realm God Order. It wasn't so easy to get a Realm God Order out of nowhere. Realm King wouldn't give it out casually, because the quotas were limited. The existence of the northern spacetime was to nurture stronger cultivators, not for personal connections. Even if Wuxia was Realm King's direct disciple, it wasn't so easy for him to obtain extra Realm God orders. If it weren't for Jian Wushuang seeking help from Elder Tiansong, Wuxia himself wouldn't bother with these people. The problem Jian Wushuang was worried about came. Before he could ask for help, others sought help from him. If it were other conditions, he could handle it, but the Realm God Order, he really had no way. He only had one in his hand. Although hesitant, he eventually voiced his request. Upon hearing about the restoration of the pyramid, Tiansong's expression changed. Though deep inside he was ecstatic, readily agreeing. "Tiansong, you're amazing," Jian Wushuang exclaimed, presenting the pyramid, now reduced to the size of a palm, to Elder Tiansong. Even the Blood Demon Temple Master, aware of the pyramid's power, couldn't resist looking up. Just moments ago, he had nearly perished from the attack unleashed by the pyramid. Especially upon learning that the pyramid was damaged. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Tiansong, who had seen much, was not overly shocked. Having been to the realm god continent, he was a super strong individual. He had seen many treasures, and he himself possessed treasures of the 9th tribulation level. Although the pyramid was powerful, he recognized it at a glance. This pyramid must be a treasure from the Southern Spacetime's Machine Clan, Tiansong carefully observed before continuing. And it's made by a special group within the Machine Clan called the Metallic Light Brain. Quite unique. Jian Wushuang's expression froze upon hearing about the Machine Clan. He knew about the Metallic Light Brain, but the Machine Clan was something he had never heard of before. Through Tiansong's explanation, he understood that the life structures of the southern spacetime were vastly different from those of the northern spacetime. It wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. The Machine Clan, like the Human Clan, was a group nurtured within spacetime. But their levels of life were different. The Human Clan had high comprehension. The Machine Clan had a natural talent for crafting treasures. Their own combat power might be average. But with the use of treasures, they could fight against super strong individuals of the Human Clan. And they were extremely troublesome opponents. Elder, is there a way to completely repair this pyramid? Jian Wushuang asked the thing he was most worried about. The stronger the pyramid, the more he needed it to be fully repaired. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the confidence to deal with Mieshang when he returned. Upon hearing this, Tiansong smiled faintly. Friend Wushuang, we are all allies. Since you've spoken up, I'll help you with this matter. However, complete repair is difficult. Even with all the divine craftsmen in the northern spacetime working together, it's impossible. But I'm confident I can restore about 70%. 70%. That was already Tiansong's limit. Among the 3 eternal beings, Tiansong was the oldest. He had spent the longest time reaching the peak. When the usual paths were blocked, he began to explore various alternative methods. He knew quite a bit about the Machine Clan's secrets. After all, the Machine Clan's strong individuals, relying solely on treasures, were not powerful. He had initially wanted to try this path. Upon reaching the peak, although the Realm King had said that they had to wait for the emergence of the God of Life to break through the 9th tribulation, waiting for countless eons was out of the question. They naturally wouldn't wait. They all began to explore other secret methods, such as creating stronger secret methods, or studying forging, alchemy, and origin source. As long as it could enhance their combat power or assist in battle, they hunted for it. Among them, Tiansong, who was extremely obsessed with forging, chose the peak secret methods of the Machine Clan. He could already refine some common 8th tribulation level universe treasures of the Machine Clan. Now that Jian Wushuang had taken out a 9th tribulation level treasure of the Machine Clan, he didn't have much confidence. To say 70% was already an exaggeration. The harder it was, the greater the favor Jian Wushuang owed. By then, he could also bring up the matter of the Realm God Order. Even if he couldn't produce the Realm God Order, he would still help Jian Wushuang. It wasn't just to please Wuxia. More importantly, he saw potential in Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's strength was evident to all. It wasn't just a simple matter of life force. There was also his relationship with the God of Life, as well as his own combat power. All of these aspects were worth their assistance. Now it was a timely help, and in the future, it would be a valuable addition. 70%. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, thinking to himself, it'll have to do for now. As Elder Tiansong had described, the current state of the pyramid was essentially just a shell. Any repair, no matter how small, was progress, and he was content with that. Jian Wushuang, speaking in confidence, you possess the Realm God Order. Once your strength advances further, you can go to the Realm God Continent. There, you'll find formidable 9th Tribulation Realm experts, including those from the Machine Clan. They could assist in repairing the pyramid, but the cost will be significant. Though Jian Wushuang didn't know much about the Realm God Continent, he understood that it was a gathering place for powerful beings from the 4 major spacetimes and the starry sky. It was an extraordinary land with 9th Tribulation Realm experts, which was to be expected. For now, this was the only solution. Jian Wushuang raised his wine cup and declared, Senior, I'll rely on you this time. If there's anything you need, just ask. I'll do my best to assist. With the repair resolved, the next step was acquiring the necessary treasures for restoration. He couldn't possibly use the scrap metal from the northern spacetime to repair the machine clan's treasures. Having been to the realm god continent, Jian Wushuang knew Tiansong and Wuxia. Wuxia had gone there to have fun, always sticking around Realm King, where he could obtain treasures from the machine clan. Therefore, Jian Wushuang had to purchase them from them. Helping with the repair was already a great favor. He couldn't ask for treasures as well. He remembered how he had cheated during the forging of the Wanjie sword. He couldn't keep taking advantage of others. Jian Wushuang had decided that whatever Tiansong asked for, he would agree, even if it meant giving up the Realm God Order. After all, he had no intention of going to the Realm God continent. If he needed to go in the future, he could ask Realm King for help. Of course, if Tiansong didn't ask for the Realm God Order, it would be even easier. Besides the treasures he personally used, he could offer everything else to Tiansong. We're all allies. There's no need to be so polite. I have many treasures from the Machine Clan. All spoils of war, hardly worth mentioning. Tiansong was extremely generous, not mentioning any repayment. However, the more Tiansong said this, the more uncomfortable Jian Wushuang felt. If it were Wuxia, he would probably start pretending to be dead silent by now. Back in the Qixin Temple, Wuxia had often swindled treasures from Jinling, relying on his thick skin. But Jian Wushuang couldn't stand such things. It was harder for him to owe someone than to have others owe him. Tiansong had seen through this point, hence his continuous apologies. If it were Wuxia, he wouldn't have been so apologetic. After all, having lived for so many years, who hadn't he seen? Could he be duped by two youngsters? That won't do. Jian Wushuang shook his head firmly. Senior, you repaired my treasures for free. Whatever treasures are needed for the repair, I must provide. Tiansong also stood up, patting Jian Wushuang's shoulder. There's no need. I've saved up some wealth over the years. We're all from the northern spacetime. In the future, when we go to the Realm God continent together, we'll support each other. What are these treasures between us? Speaking of this, Yu Wujin also stood up and echoed, Senior Jian Wushuang. What Patriarch said is right. We cultivators from the northern spacetime will unite when we arrive at the Realm God continent. These treasures are indeed insignificant. Although the juniors haven't been to the Realm God continent yet, Patriarch often tells us that when we go there, we must unite. Implicitly, he admitted that he hadn't been to the Realm God continent, but what Patriarch said was correct. Phew! With a deep breath, Jian Wushuang directly took out the token. It was the Realm God Order. He slapped it on the table and said, Everyone, please stop persuading. There's nothing valuable on me that you desire. This Realm God token was bestowed by Realm King. Today, I will give it to Senior Tiansong. As he spoke, he pointed out and placed the Realm God token directly in front of Elder Tiansong. I can't accept it. Elder Tiansong was ecstatic in his heart but didn't dare to take it. He did want to fight for a token like this for the younger generation, but he didn't plan to take Jian Wushuang's. Instead, he wanted Jian Wushuang to ask Wuxia to get it from Realm King. Unexpectedly, Jian Wushuang, without being provoked, directly brought out his own Realm God token. It was not surprising for Jian Wushuang to have this token. The achievements of Wan Lu's group were significant for the northern spacetime, and Jian Wushuang had resolved the crisis with the metallic lifeform. It was normal to be granted the Realm God token. If Senior respects me, please accept it. Jian Wushuang's gaze was serious. If not, I'll have to find another way to repay this favor. The atmosphere froze suddenly. Elder Tiansong felt a bit embarrassed. But Yu Wujin and the Blood Demon Temple Master were gleaming with excitement. If Patriarch agreed, then both of them had a chance to obtain this token. In the current Tiansong Palace, among Elder Tiansong's descendants, there were 4 8th Tribulation experts, 2 of whom were scattered tribulations. There were also 2 8th Tribulation Universe Masters. However, their strengths were just average. Yu Wujin's status could rival that of an 8th Tribulation Universe Master, and his bloodline power was very strong. Elder Tiansong favored him greatly, and he had a good chance of obtaining this realm god token. As for the Blood Demon Temple Master, as Elder Tiansong's illegitimate son, he was also an 8th Tribulation Universe Master. Although the father and son had some conflicts, they were still related by blood. Compared to Yu Wujin, who knows how many generations apart, the father and son were much stronger. Moreover, among the 8th Tribulation, the Blood Demon Temple Master's strength surpassed the other 2 8th Tribulation Universe Masters in Tiansong Palace by far. They were both very excited and eager to help Elder Tiansong accept it. But Elder Tiansong remained unmoved. The Realm God continent was not that simple. Outsiders and natives were completely different. And it also depended on one's background and status. Elder Tiansong had only average relations with the gods of the northern spacetime. Initially, he was only favored by Realm King. Naturally, his strength was invincible among the 8th Tribulation, but he hadn't reached the level of power in the 9th Tribulation. Even if he reached the 9th Tribulation in the future, he wouldn't be invincible in the Realm God continent. He still needed help. Jian Wushuang and Wu Zuo were the kind of help he needed. In addition to helping the younger generation enter the Realm God continent, Elder Tiansong hoped to have an alliance relationship with Jian Wushuang and Wu Zuo. Not only were they powerful, but their backgrounds were also strong. That's why he hesitated. Even though Jian Wushuang spoke so decisively, there was still no intention to accept. Seeing things reach this point, Wu Zuo had to step forward to ease the tension. After a moment of contemplation, he had an idea in mind and generously took the Realm God token, casually handing it to the Elder of Tiansong. Tiansong, my brother is straightforward. Just accept it. It's just a Realm God token, right? Wu Zuo seemed indifferent. I'll have as many as I want. When Brother Wushuang wants to enter the Realm God continent, I'll just ask the Realm King for another one. After hearing Wu Zuo's words, the Elder of Tiansong couldn't help but accept it. Although aware that Wu Zuo was somewhat boastful, considering Jian Wushuang's extraordinary talent and Wu Zuo's relationship, it should be easy for him to ask the Realm King for another Realm God token in the future. Well then, I accept it. The Elder of Tiansong forced a smile and accepted the Realm God token. The purpose of this exchange was achieved. Albeit with flaws, they still obtained a Realm God token. Glancing at Yu Wujin and then at the Blood Demon Temple Master, he remained silent regarding the ownership of the Realm God token. He feared that if he decided now, the Realm King might blame him later, which would be troublesome if Jian Wushuang came with him. So he dared not make a direct decision. When Jian Wushuang obtained a new Realm God token and entered the Realm God continent in the future, he would then determine the ownership of this Realm God token and inspire all the juniors, letting them know that everyone has the chance to enter the Realm God continent. It was hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Seeing the Elder of Tiansong accept it, Jian Wushuang also felt relieved. Finally, he didn't owe anyone any favors. A burden lifted from his heart. At the same time, he transmitted his voice. Brother Wu Zuo, can you really get me another Realm God token? Don't worry. That old Realm King isn't as stingy as Jinling. If I ask, he'll definitely give it to you. Wu Zuo confidently replied. Actually, he wasn't sure. But to repair the pyramid, he had to make some effort. He couldn't let Jian Wushuang bleed alone. After all, after the pyramid was repaired, it was to return to the Qixin Temple to deal with Miesheng. And using Jian Wushuang's name to ask for the Realm God token was much better than saying the wanted to exchange it for treasures. Otherwise, the Realm King would scold him as a spendthrift. He could actually do something like exchanging the Realm God token for treasures. Jian Wushuang really had no choice but to take out the Realm God token. However, he wasn't really concerned about the Realm God token. He didn't have much expectation for the Realm God continent either. As long as Miesheng was alive, there was a mountain in his heart. After eradicating Miesheng, he would take a good rest before considering his adventures. He would definitely go to the Realm God continent, just not in a hurry. After expressing his request and resolving the favor issue, the banquet became more casual. After 3 days of drinking, they ended the banquet. Jian Wushuang didn't ask much about the Realm God continent, but the discussions about the ancient beings became much more stable. ancient beings, eternal beings. Before, Jian Wushuang thought the other party might be in the ninth tribulation or even beyond it. Later, he wondered if the other party might be a god. Now, he finally understood where the other party was stuck. Perfect stage of the eighth tribulation realm. The perfection of the origin source and divine power. But it hadn't reached the true limit yet. To become a ninth tribulation realm, one's hometown spacetime needed to be able to sustain one's life. Currently, the northern spacetime hadn't achieved that yet. But it wasn't far off. Once Danbao created the secret technique of resurrection, they would start preparing for the creation of the pinnacle secret technique of the ninth tribulation realm. Once capable of sustaining life in the ninth tribulation realm, the northern spacetime would reach its peak state. It could continuously give birth to beings of the ninth tribulation realm. The other three major spacetimes had already gone through this process. The northern spacetime, however, lagged behind. It was no wonder that Weiss had berated the Northern Realm King back then. Now, Elder Tiansong, like scattered tribulation, awaited the creation of the Danbao secret technique. Their current state wasn't the eighth tribulation realm nor the ninth. To be precise, they had sealed their origin source, allowing their divine power to increase while their origin source remained stagnant. Advancing further would require transcending the ninth tribulation. Given the current state of the northern spacetime, even if the tribulation were successful, it would result in downfall. Having cultivated for so long, the three ancient existences were well prepared for the tribulation, possessing absolute confidence in their success. They were just unable to undergo it. Thus, they had no choice but to seal their origin source, halting its cultivation. Jian Wushuang was extremely curious upon hearing this. He wondered how they could suppress the ninth tribulation for so long. If one could prolong the time of tribulation suppression, there wouldn't be scattered tribulation in the eighth tribulation realm. Ultimately, they would all reach the state of ancient existence. The explanation received later was related to the Realm God continent. Not only the Realm God continent but also with the assistance of the Realm King, they cultivated a peculiar secret technique to reach the state of eternal being. After receiving this explanation, Jian Wushuang fully understood. At the same time, he lamented the tragedy of the other eighth tribulation experts, abandoned mercilessly. They marched forward to undergo the tribulation one after another, eventually becoming scattered tribulation. No wonder the three eternal beings never disclosed their realms to the outside world. They only let those eighth tribulation powerhouses speculate, ultimately losing their lives. Now, with the God of life, scattered tribulation, and the eternal beings all had hope. This era truly was the best of times. Jian Wushuang sighed. As the opener of this spacetime, he also felt a hint of excitement. He hoped to see a world of different colors. His strength had already touched the pinnacle of this world. Without stronger beings, it would be dull. Although there were ninth tribulation realm powerhouses in the Realm God continent, it was merely swapping one world for another. There was minimal essential improvement. Unknowingly, they reached the end. Jian Wushuang felt hollow in his heart. Perhaps the existence of Mieshang was still a good thing, giving him endless motivation. The banquet ended, and the crowd dispersed. Elder Tiansong prepared to address the restoration issue, while Jian Wushuang and others were taken by Yu Wujin to visit the Tiansong Palace. Their purpose wasn't merely sightseeing. Inside the Tiansong Palace, there was someone waiting for them to find, and they needed to purchase some treasures. Originally, the task of purchasing treasures was supposed to be entrusted to Wuxia. However, after realizing the difficulty behind repairing the pyramid this time, Jian Wushuang generously took out a life origin source of the 8th tribulation level and handed it to Yu Wujin, asking for help in purchasing treasures. The power of life served as the reward. Yu Wujin vigorously declined, not because he didn't want to help with the treasure purchase, but because he didn't dare to accept the power of life. He needed to behave well, especially in front of Jian Wushuang and others. Friend Wujin, just accept it. As for this power of life, I have as much as I need. It's nothing. Jian Wushuang rarely boasted but was speaking the truth. Still, Yu Wujin was quite cautious. He first sought the opinion of the elder before finally accepting it. He was actually quite tempted by so much power of life. Although he didn't need it himself, he could use it to exchange for favors. Originating from Tiansong Palace, Jian Wushuang was not just a formidable figure. He was the cream of the crop, the epitome of his generation's excellence. What he lacked wasn't treasures but allies. He required the support of strong figures within his clan, such as the two scattered tribulation experts. With their backing, he could obtain the Realm God token. With the infusion of life force, Yu Wujin became even more attentive, introducing the peculiar treasures of Tiansong Palace while instructing its strong members to gather the treasures Jian Wushuang needed. Upon reviewing the purchase list, he couldn't help but feel a pang of pain. The number of required treasures was overwhelming, far beyond what Tiansong Palace could provide in one go. They needed to gather from other spacetimes, coinciding with the years required for pyramid restoration. However, this wasn't a setback. The restoration process was accelerated by millions of times, courtesy of Elder Tiansong. Repairing a level 9th tribulation-level artifact of the Machine Clan wasn't as simple as it sounded. Even though it was only restored to about 70% of its original power, it still demanded a significant amount of time. Playing games with an age-old fox like Tiansong was a testament to Jian Wushuang's naivety. Nevertheless, it was merely a display of wit. Moreover, Elder Tiansong lacked some materials, requiring exchanges with two other eternal beings. Back at the banquet, if he hadn't played his cards right, he wouldn't have acquired the Realm God token. Playing games with an age-old fox like Tiansong was a testament to Jian Wushuang's naivety. Nevertheless, it was merely a display of wit. Presenting the Realm God token, Jian Wushuang had no qualms. All he sought was peace of mind. There was no resentment towards Elder Tiansong. Instead, he was deeply grateful. The ability to restore the pyramid made everything worthwhile. Having witnessed the pyramid's power, he became even more convinced of his plan. There were no doubts. Restoring 70% of its power, as long as the pyramid could still emit those red beams, he was confident of returning to Qixin Temple with absolute certainty. He refused to believe that Miesheng's power could remain formidable at the lower levels. According to what Weiss and Realm King had said, Miesheng couldn't unleash its peak strength in the Origin Universe's spacetime. Being at the peak of 8th Tribulation was already commendable. However, even so, he wasn't complacent, preparing everything wholeheartedly. The Martial Hall, a branch of Tiansong Palace, it also served as a martial arena for sparring matches. In order to entertain Jian Wushuang and his peers, Yu Wujin went to great lengths to organize an internal challenge within Tiansong Palace ahead of schedule. It was a grand competition held to motivate the members to strive for improvement. All Universe Masters? Jian Wushuang and his companions sat at the top of the viewing platform, surrounded by emptiness, as they occupied almost half of the platform. There were no outsiders to disturb them, but this time, 2 8th Tribulation experts accompanied them. The 8th Tribulation Universe Masters of Tiansong Palace were out adventuring and not present at Tiansong Palace. Even if they were, Yu Wujin wouldn't have allowed them to participate. Giving such an opportunity to others would mean losing everything for oneself. Since Tiansong's old man had obtained Jian Wushuang's Realm God token, Yu Wujin saw everyone as potential competitors. So, this time's martial competition was exclusively for disciples below the 7th Tribulation. To enhance the spectacle, they naturally wouldn't invite scattered tribulation experts to avoid embarrassment. Therefore, all participants were Universe Masters, numbering in the thousands. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Thousands of 6th Tribulation Universe Masters. This was the first time he had seen so many Universe Masters. Tiansong Palace truly lived up to its reputation as a force equal to the heavens, possessing formidable reserves. Among those people, Jian Wushuang immediately spotted a familiar face. Lord Guangying. He turned and reminded Wuxia and the others. They all looked towards Lord Guangying. As an inheritor from the Qixin Temple, he was now shining brightly within the Tiansong Palace. It was the sex martial arts competition. On the 10 main platforms, each had a defender. The longer one defended, the higher their rank. Initially, everyone had one challenge opportunity. Lose and you're out. Win and you gain another challenge opportunity. Even if you lost later in the round robin, you could still challenge other platforms. And so on. Only the final 10 would qualify for the next round. At this moment, Lord Guangying sat atop the first platform. Surprisingly, no one dared to challenge him. Clearly, among peers, his strength was dazzling, and everyone feared his power. Some who knew they were at the bottom took the heroic route. They chose to challenge Lord Guangying. But on the platform, Lord Guangying hardly needed to lift a finger to defeat his opponents, because his shadow alone could defeat challengers, to the point where he boredly danced with his shadow. On one platform, there were two identical shadows standing on each side. Encountering a challenger, just one shadow could easily defeat them. Watching from the spectator stands, Yu Wujin saw Jian Wushuang and others showing interest in Lord Guangying on the first platform. Seeing no one challenge, he forcefully ordered some universe masters at the sixth tribulation realm, who had decent strength, to challenge Lord Guangying. Seniors, interested in challenging Lord Guangying? Yu Wujin cautiously asked. Jian Wushuang shrugged, playfully saying, "Friend Wujin, I might need to ask you for a favor this time." "Oh." Yu Wujin paused for a moment, thinking Jian Wushuang had eyes on that female cultivator, and replied with a faint smile. "If they catch your eye, it's their luck. Feel free to challenge." He acted as if he was open to their challenges. Wu Zhu felt a bit speechless, waved his hand and said, "When did Lord Guangying enter Tiansong Palace?" "He hasn't been with Tiansong Palace for long, probably around 1,000,000 epochs ago, but his progress has been rapid. In just 1,000,000 epochs, he reached the peak of the sixth tribulation realm. His current divine power is estimated to be around 1.2 million. Yu Wujin explained in detail because Lord Guangying belonged to his faction of strong individuals. He was familiar with his own people. The 1.2 million divine power figure was just a fabrication. He just felt it sounded about right. In reality, Lord Guangying's strength was far from that. It should be noted that initially, Lord Guangying was the first among the first batch of inheritors from the Qixin Temple. During the same period, he shone even brighter than Jian Wushuang and Hu Qing. His potential was much greater than Dongshang and Wanyan. He was also an emperor who achieved the ultimate Tao. After reaching the sixth tribulation realm with the support of the Realm King, his opportunities were probably not small. His divine power wouldn't be weaker than Dongshang and Wanyan either. He had at least 1.5 million divine power. "Friend Wujin, this Lord Guangying, he's an acquaintance of mine. This time, I might take him along when I leave. Please forgive me." Jian Wushuang didn't conceal anything. Instead, he voiced his request. Although Yu Wujin was somewhat curious, he didn't mind. He raised his hands in agreement. Initially, he thought Jian Wushuang had his eye on a female cultivator, never expecting to encounter an acquaintance. Luck was on his side. Being acquainted with Jian Wushuang and his companions, and moreover being under his command, brought their relationship closer once again. Glancing briefly at the battle power of Lord Guangying from the observation platform, it seemed satisfactory. Actually, there was no need to bring the other party back to the Qixin Temple. They wouldn't be of much use anyway. Jian Wushuang just wanted to fulfill his initial promise. Back then, he promised Jinling to bring back everyone. He couldn't go back on his word. As for the initial vow, it had long been gone. Once reaching this level, releasing vows was simple. They weren't oaths bound by supreme rules. There were no constraints. If the other party, like Xin Wuyang, didn't want to leave, he wouldn't force them. But the karma for the future would be severed. Jian Wushuang still looked down on those who even abandoned their homeland. It was just that it was Xin Wuyang he dealt with initially, he didn't show it. Because Xin Wuyang's Great Sea region had already been destroyed. There was no attachment left. As for the great kindness of Jinling, according to his words, he would repay it in the next life. Lord Guangying was different. His homeland was still there. And Jinling had shown him great kindness back then. After all, from a Tao Lord, he had reached the peak perfection and left the Qixin Temple. It could be said that from shortly after birth, he arrived at the Qixin Temple, cultivated all the way to peak perfection, made an oath in front of the Qixin's tombstone, and even drank blood wine. He couldn't not go back. Sitting above and watching the fights below, Jian Wushuang felt a bit itchy to fight. It just happened that he wanted to talk to Lord Guangying, so he took the initiative to get up and stretch. Watching them fight is making me itchy. Friend Wu Jin, I'll go meet the pride of your Tiansong Palace. Haha. It's the good fortune of these little fellows. Yu Wujin chuckled lightly, although he hadn't seen Jian Wushuang take action. He had heard that Jian Wushuang could hold his ground against the Blood Demon Temple Master. Even he wasn't a match for the Blood Demon Temple Master. Yet Jian Wushuang was only at the 6th Tribulation Realm. Although his realm was similar to those little fellows below, his divine power was strong to such an extent. Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Wu Zhuo also wanted to go down and try. But after seeing the origin source of Jian Wushuang's 6th Tribulation Realm, he held back. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he wouldn't go to spar with a 6th Tribulation Universe Master. Dongshang and Wan Yen, on the other hand, didn't have this idea. The two of them had been oppressed by the Blood Demon Temple for so long, and now they were finally free. They enjoyed life. Watching others fight on the arena was the most comfortable. Jian Wushuang and Wu Zhuo found it boring without opponents. The two brothers had fought for millions of epochs. They had grown tired of battles. Jian Wushuang's figure flickered and appeared directly on the first arena below. The master of the first arena was Lord Guangying. Lord Guangying saw the unfamiliar figure in front of him and thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Although there were many 6th Tribulation Universe Masters in the Tiansong Palace. But there were only about 1,000 of them, each one he knew, and could even speak of the other's cultivation secrets. The unfamiliar figure appearing in front of him now felt familiar, but he couldn't recognize who it was. Jian Wushuang restrained his aura. Even an 8th Tribulation Universe Master couldn't see through him. Among the same realm, even 6th Tribulation Universe Masters couldn't see his appearance. Even Lord Guangying could only vaguely see the outline of Jian Wushuang's face, which made him feel familiar. There was a layer of black mist on Jian Wushuang's face. He deliberately concealed himself. Since he had come down, he might as well fight a battle first. Deal with the matter after the fight. Who are you? Just an old friend. Jian Wushuang replied indifferently. Lord Guangying frowned. Old friend. He pondered over it but couldn't figure out who it might be. The matter of Qishan Temple was buried deep in his heart. He never really dwelled on it. After reincarnating into the ancient moon spacetime, he arrived at the treasure market within the 9 heavens, becoming a direct disciple of a 7-star sect, then ascending to the position of Universe Master, and unexpectedly being transported to the Tiansong Eternal Realm during an adventure in a secret realm. However, upon entering the Tiansong Eternal Realm, he first arrived at a secret realm, obtained an ancient inheritance, and only then entered the Tiansong Palace. With a powerful inheritance and the nurturing of the Tiansong Palace, after cultivating for millions of epochs, he finally broke through to the 6th Tribulation Universe Master. Throughout this journey, he had yet to have a confidant. He always regarded the ancient moon spacetime and the Tiansong Eternal Realm as his crucible. He had never felt emotions. Now, hearing the term old friend stirred something in his heart. Yet he dared not dwell on it, because he had actively searched for the several people who had come together initially. But there was no news whatsoever, to the point where he began to wonder if they had all perished. Or perhaps, everything that happened back then was just a fleeting dream? Jian Wushuang discerned the other party's doubt, realizing that everyone would have such thoughts, except for himself. Not because his Tao heart was particularly steadfast, but because time flowed slowly within the Wanlu divine tree, while the outside world's time flowed too swiftly. As a result, after several epochs for him, millions of epochs had passed outside. Those people from the past had been specially arranged by Realm King, and as long as he didn't come out, they wouldn't meet. So, at this moment, there was such a great doubt. Various thoughts raced through his mind, stirring up memories of the past. And those vows made by those naive faces standing before the Qishan tomb had become lies. Who exactly are you? Lord Guangying didn't dare to think further, furrowing his brows and taking a step back, pointing at Jian Wushuang with an incredulous gaze. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, raising his hand. Try and you'll find out. Clang. He drew his sword directly. The Wuxia sword emerged from its scabbard, bathed in a faint blue light. This action was his signature move, just like when he drew the Juyun sword back then, confronting the incarnation of Mieshang. Lord Guangying had witnessed it. Now, seeing this action, he started to believe somewhat. The person before him was indeed an old friend. This also made Lord Guangying feel somewhat relieved, but he didn't retreat further. Instead, several dark shadows appeared around him. Jian Wushuang grinned as well, and both of them made their moves simultaneously. Since they were old friends, they decided to test each other's strength over these years. Lord Guangying was one of the top talents back then. At some point, he even surpassed Jian Wushuang and Hu Qing. Apart from Shang, he was the first inheritor at the Grave God Mountain. Now, after entering the ancient moon spacetime, although he was also a sixth tribulation universe master, his overall strength was indeed much stronger than Dongshang and Wan Yen. 3 shadow clones moved instantly. Each clone's divine power was controlled at 1.2 million. Not much different from the main body. Moreover, these clones were elusive and their speed was extremely eerie. Jian Wushuang didn't use the super-eternal ancient transformation, merely relying on basic divine power of only 1.5 million, but dealing with these shadow clones was still a piece of cake. With a swift movement, several streams of light protruded. With 1 sword and 3 slashes, Jian Wushuang pierced through 3 shadow clones. Finally, he dashed towards the true body of Lord Guangying. As expected, Lord Guangying realized Jian Wushuang hadn't changed from the formidable swordsman he once knew. He was still as powerful as ever. But he hadn't wasted his years either. Jian Wushuang's Wuxia sword transformed into thousands of blue lights descending. His divine power reached the pinnacle of foundation. With a force of 1.5 million, he directly pierced through Lord Guangying's true body. Jian Wushuang paused, looking at the pierced true body with a raised brow, then quickly turned to look behind. While Lord Guangying's true body reformed, 100 shadow clones appeared around the arena. Each shadow's divine power surged to 1.3 million. This scene astonished many present. They had only seen up to 10 clones of Lord Guangying before, and those clones had around 1.2 million divine power each. This level of divine power was the peak for most universe masters at the Sixth Tribulation. Lord Guangying's ability had already reached the pinnacle among Sixth Tribulation universe masters. And that was just the true body. Nobody at the same level could fathom Lord Guangying's true combat strength. I didn't expect Lord Guangying to conceal his true power. Some geniuses on other platforms murmured, marveling at Lord Guangying's strength. At the same time, they were curious about Jian Wushuang's identity. They could sense Jian Wushuang's realm, also a Sixth Tribulation universe master. Yet he could go toe-to-toe with Lord Guangying. The spectators in the observation platform remained indifferent, especially those like Wuxia who knew Jian Wushuang's true strength. Even if there were 100 clones with 1.3 million divine power each, Jian Wushuang could easily annihilate them. Yu Wujin, standing aside, was astonished by Lord Guangying's strength, never expecting such a character under his command. With such strength, talent, and potential, he would undoubtedly become a Seventh Tribulation Realm universe master in the future. He also understood why Jian Wushuang wanted to take him away. Glancing over among Jian Wushuang's group, there was Wuxia, whose strength could rival the top 8th Tribulation Realm experts, surpassing them by an unknown degree. Then there were Dongshang and Wan Yen, whose divine power surpassed 1.5 million each, casually surpassing the top geniuses of various major powers. They were invincible existences among Sixth Tribulation universe masters. As for Jian Wushuang, it went without saying. He could resist divine powers of tens of millions effortlessly. He was also unique among the 9 great spacetimes. It's just that the Jian Wushuang on the platform hadn't shown his full strength. Facing 100 shadow clones, although he felt no pressure, he didn't display overwhelming suppression either. Instead, he was testing Lord Guangying. Guangying, show some of your true abilities, or this fight will end soon. Jian Wushuang wielded the Wuxia sword and released a burst of sword chi from behind, shattering several light shadows. Countless sword shadows flew out from his back, instantly breaking through the 100 shadow clones. The opponent's secret technique was quite good, definitely a peak technique. But 100 shadow clones were far from Lord Guangying's limit. He could at least create 1,000 shadows. And individual shadows would be even more powerful. Lord Guangying raised his head, his voice deep. Tisk tsk. Then let me show you what I've learned over the years. Rumble. The ground began to collapse as light and shadows fell into it. The sky began to distort. 10,000 shadow tribulation. Buzz. The surrounding spacetime began to shake. Countless light and shadows converged in the sky. From top to bottom, a pyramid shape inverted. Light and shadow rose from the ground at this moment, emitting a dark mist all over, the power after the fragmentation of shadows. Countless shadows above the head, blessing the entire body of light and shadow. Each of the countless shadows possessed a divine power of 1.5 million. Each one was comparable to a 7th Tribulation Realm expert. And at this moment, the true strength of the Lord Guangying burst forth. Directly increased from 1.5 million to 2 million. These powers came from shadows. Water can carry a boat. It can also overturn it. The Lord Guangying could empower shadows with divine power. Naturally, shadows could also amplify the divine power of the Lord Guangying's main body. The subtlety of this secret technique lies here. 2 million divine powers made the divine body of the Lord Guangying extremely huge. Looking at this huge divine body, the 6th Tribulation Universe Masters who were of the same sect as the Lord Guangying couldn't even utter words in shock. This wasn't just a slight difference, but almost a difference of a whole level. The current Lord Guangying had reached the peak strength of the 7th Tribulation Realm. Dongsheng and Wanyan were no match for him. Among the 6th Tribulation Realms, perhaps only Jian Wushuang could suppress the Lord Guangying. The opponent was indeed very powerful. The basic divine body was actually similar to his, but amplifying such a large divine body, the secret technique indeed surpassed Dongsheng and Wanyan. This indirectly explained the function of the secret technique. The basic divine power relied on treasures to be stacked up. But the secret technique required one to create it themselves. Initially, Jian Wushuang's secret technique could only amplify the origin source, unable to amplify divine power. Later, it took who knows how much cost to create the super-eternal ancient transformation. Together with the origin source, it was amplified to the peak. This was the power of the secret technique. Lord Guangying looked down at Jian Wushuang and said indifferently, "How about it? Can the current strength meet your eyes?" This sentence carried a hint of provocation. Indeed, Jian Wushuang's strength was pressing the many inheritors of Qixin Temple to the point of breathlessness. When they entered the ancient moon spacetime, they were all gearing up to surpass everyone else. They regarded Jian Wushuang as their target. Now, Lord Guangying was confident in defeating Jian Wushuang in front of him. A basic divine power of 1.5 million. Not much different from light and shadow. It all depended on the secret technique. Lord Guangying didn't rush to make a move, just waiting for Jian Wushuang. At this moment, there was excitement in his heart. Guessing where Jian Wushuang's divine power limit lay, there was no hiding the origin source. Jian Wushuang's 6th Tribulation strength was right there. Initially, Jian Wushuang could rival the Universe Masters at the level of Tao Lord, although it's difficult to surpass realms after reaching the Tribulation Realm. But that's just for ordinary people. Not for someone like Jian Wushuang, a peerless genius. Not bad. Your strength surpasses Dongsheng and Wanyan. Jian Wushuang evaluated indifferently. After hearing these two familiar names, the Lord Guangying paused for a moment, then understood. Jian Wushuang didn't come alone. He also brought Dongsheng and Wanyan, and they could suddenly join the trial in Tiansong Palace. Both in background and strength, they wouldn't be too weak. This only made the Lord Guangying more excited. Jian Wushuang, it's been so many years, yet you still remain so composed. Lord Guangying's figure trembled as his myriad shadows reached their peak. Countless shadows returned to his original form in the light. Divine power continued to surge, with no more concealment from him. His divine power directly broke through the 2 million mark, finally settling at 2.3 million, surpassing the strength of ordinary 7th Tribulation experts. If it's said that for 6th Tribulation realm experts, reaching 1.5 million divine power was a limit, then for 7th Tribulation realm it was 3 million. Crossing that threshold put them on par with ordinary 8th Tribulation realm experts. The fact that Lord Guangying's divine power could erupt to 2.3 million had exceeded the expectations of many. Only Jian Wushuang could sense that immense divine power within him, hence his lack of too much surprise. As for the other geniuses at the arena who were at the 6th Tribulation realm, their mouths gaped wide once again, shocked by Lord Guangying's strength. It was beyond their comprehension. Even Yu Wujin, on the observation platform, wore an incredulous expression. He, being a half-step 8th Tribulation realm, had a basic divine power of only 2.8 million. With his secret techniques, he could match ordinary 8th Tribulation realm experts, increasing his divine power to over 3 million. But he was a universe master at the 7th Tribulation realm, and his basic divine power was extremely high. In contrast, Lord Guangying was only a universe master at the 6th Tribulation realm, with weak basic divine power of only 1.5 million. Yet, after amplification it reached a terrifying 2.3 million, an increase of a staggering 800,000. This demonstrated how powerful Lord Guangying's secret techniques were. Although Jian Wushuang knew of Lord Guangying's strength, he couldn't help but be stunned in place. An increase of 800,000, reaching more than half of his basic divine power. Although his super-eternal transformation could double his power, it was because of the power of the starry sky and the ability to connect with the origin source that it could achieve such an increase. But Lord Guangying, just a universe master on the path of ultimate Tao cultivation, was able to create such astonishing secret techniques. Truly rare. Only disciples like Wuxia, who had cultivated the Realm King's supreme techniques, could confidently suppress Lord Guangying. It all came down to different opportunities. If Lord Guangying had been a disciple of the Realm King, he might not have been inferior to Wuxia. With Realm King's guidance and countless treasures, reaching the 7th Tribulation realm wasn't that impressive. After all, initially all 10 people could have reached it. It was just a matter of fate. Now, am I worth your intervention? Lord Guangying retracted his shadows, but he had already transformed into a shadow himself. His divine power seemed ethereal, his face somewhat ferocious, as he stared fixedly at Jian Wushuang. His whole body was covered in pitch-black demonic flames, with real substance within the shadow but the divine power seemingly void, allowing him to fully unleash the power within his divine body, almost infinite. Jian Wushuang immediately discerned his opponent's confidence and took a deep breath, intending to fully unleash his own divine power, to feel his limits. Super-eternal ancient transformation. He clenched his fists, and his tribulation armor instantly appeared. His basic divine power directly increased by 500,000. This startled Lord Guangying, who was also puzzled. Just a 500,000 increase? Even as an opponent, he found it hard to believe. Jian Wushuang had been so dazzling before. After becoming a universe master, how could he be so mediocre? But when he saw that the additional 500,000 divine power merged seamlessly with the basic divine power, he realized things weren't so simple. On the observation platform, Wuxia and others were relaxed. "Ha, Brother Wushuang. This outbreak will probably dumbfound Lord Guangying." Wuxia laughed loudly. "Watch closely. This kind of scene is rare." The last sentence was clearly directed at Yu Wujin, who had always doubted the extent of Jian Wushuang's divine power. At this moment, he was fully focused on observing Jian Wushuang's changes. The basic divine power increased by 500,000, and he was indeed very surprised. But he was more eager to see Jian Wushuang's secret method, to see how much more divine power it could amplify. To resist the peak powerhouse of the 8th Tribulation realm, he would need at least 8 million divine power. On the arena, Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly, roaring angrily, his aura soaring into the sky. The blood vessels on his neck surged, and with the outbreak of the blue aura, his divine power directly soared to its limit. 5 million! With a burst, it didn't stabilize, stopping only at 5 million. Actually, this was not his peak. When he fought against Wuxia back then, the value was far more than this. But in front of Lord Guangying, he didn't need to display his full strength. Just using the Super Eternal Ancient Transformation was enough. His Super Eternal Ancient Transformation could now amplify 3 million divine power. If he also used the Origin Source Dao Arena, it would amplify 40% more divine power. He could reach 8 million. Once he lit up the second universe, he could amplify 50% more, which would be 7.5 million. The more universes he lit up, the more he could amplify. In the 9 great spacetimes, the reason why they all followed the path of divine power in the early stage was because without the support of the Dao Arena, cultivating the origin source was not very useful. Usually, it was only after reaching the 8th tribulation realm, or when they reached their limit, that they would cultivate the origin source. Especially for the universe masters of the 8th tribulation realm, who could carry their Dao Arena with them. They would pay special attention to the support of their Dao Arena. Just like Tiansong, when they reached that level, they usually cultivated their Dao Arena to the extreme, probably lighting up no less than 10 universes. Compared to ordinary universe masters of the 8th tribulation realm, they became much stronger. Without using the origin source Dao Arena, Jian Wushuang was closest to the normal state of the 6th tribulation realm. But wherever he stood, he still intimidated the powerhouses in the entire sky. 5 million divine power. He didn't feel the slightest bit of effort. It was extremely easy. Lord Guangying stared wide-eyed, full of disbelief. 5 million! That power could easily crush him with just a touch. The other 6th tribulation realm powerhouses on the other platforms were even more dumbfounded. They all doubted whether Jian Wushuang was pretending to be weak and hiding his realm. Otherwise, how could he be so powerful? For a moment, many universe masters of the 6th tribulation realm had already sent messages to Yu Wujin. But Yu Wujin on the observation platform turned to look at Wuxia, his tone extremely unsettled. Senior Wuxia, can his divine power reveal 70%? 5 million divine power was Yu Wujin's guess. Just seeing Jian Wushuang's calm expression, he really wanted to know how powerful Jian Wushuang really was. How much did he differ from the rumored 10 million divine power? It's about the same. Some powers cannot be seen with the eyes, but need to be tested with life. Wu's words made Yu Wujin sink into contemplation. Obviously, he was telling him that Jian Wushuang's strength was not just on the surface, but the terrifying toughness he showed when fighting for his life. Once again witnessing Jian Wushuang erupting with the power of 8th tribulation, Wan Yan and the others couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. Especially for Yi Lingxiao, within just a few days from being hunted down to this moment, it was all because of Jian Wushuang and Wu's protection. At this moment, she finally understood why Wan Yan trusted Jian Wushuang so much. It was all about confidence. Lord Guangying on the arena went from astonishment to a sense of relief. He could be powerful and so could others. As long as Jian Wushuang didn't fall, there was no potential surpassing him. With a swoosh, no fighting, he directly accepted the secret technique. His figure also returned to its original appearance. Speaking of which, I'm a bit embarrassed. I've been holding on to the determination to surpass you all these years. I didn't expect that when we meet again, the gap is still so vast, even greater than during the Emperor's period. Lord Guangying chuckled bitterly and shook his head. Back then, they were all emperors. Jian Wushuang could rival the power of Third Tribulation. At that time, they were only at the supreme peak, rivaling the power of First Tribulation. After millions of epochs passed, Jian Wushuang had reached the peak power of the 8th tribulation, even rivaling the pinnacle of the 8th tribulation. The gap was too big, despite their divine power being able to rival the pinnacle of the 7th tribulation. But the gap in between was terrifyingly difficult to bridge, even more so than during the Emperor's time. Jian Wushuang also absorbed the divine power calmly and said, "We're all the same. Everything is for that home. There's nothing to sigh about. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." The two looked at each other and then laughed. With a thought in the other's unconsciousness, they had already arrived at the observation platform. Lord Guangying's relationship with the others was quite ordinary. It was only Wuxia who had spent quite some time on Grave God Mountain, so he could be considered as having watched them grow. There were some things to talk about. 5 people gathered. Half of them were already here. Originally, there were 10 people. In the end, only 8 could go back. Or maybe 9. They had already gone back, and the fallen Fan Tianfeng had become a thing of the past. Zhen Wuyang chose the Wanlu willow tree and had his own home. Jian Wushuang treated him as if he had also fallen. Now, there were only 3 people left to find. While the crowd chatted, Wu's will also mention the whereabouts of Tongtian Buddha and Gu Qianluo. The former was in the ancient moon spacetime, and the latter was in the Azure Sea spacetime. Both were still quite far away. Jian Wushuang wasn't interested in Gu Qianluo. Among the original 10 people, he looked down upon Gu Qianluo the most. The other one was Fan Tianfeng, but his opinion changed later on. So only Gu Qianluo was left. If Lord Guangying had ambitions back then, unwilling to fall behind. Then Gu Qianluo had reached the extreme of unwillingness, with a twisted heart. So he wasn't interested in this person. Moreover, the distance to the Azure Sea spacetime was almost the same as to the ancient moon spacetime. And from Wu's words, he also understood that Tongtian Buddha hadn't walked out of his own path yet, so it might take some time. Jian Wushuang decided to go alone to the ancient moon spacetime, while Wu's led the remaining strong ones to the Azure Sea spacetime to find Gu Qianluo. And repairing the pyramid would take time, so there was no need for Wuxia and the others to wait here with him. It was better to set off for the Azure Sea spacetime first. This group of people, Wuxia was on par with the peak power of the 8th tribulation, and Lord Guangying had the peak power of the 7th tribulation, so there was absolutely no danger. It was just a simple crossing of the river of time and space, something that the universe masters could do. Those with slightly weaker abilities might encounter danger. But the weakest among them were all universe masters of the 5th tribulation. There was almost zero threat. Plus, with Wu's status, no one dared to provoke them. The only thing Jian Wushuang was worried about was the universe master of the 5th tribulation, Yi Lingxiao. The blood-colored power on her was very special. He had just been too embarrassed to ask about it. He was afraid that something might happen to him. When the opportunity arose, he would go and ask the Blood Demon Temple Master about it. The blood-colored power could amplify divine power, which was truly a coveted treasure. He was just afraid that someone might have their eyes on it. Moreover, since the other party came from the Yi family, he hadn't heard of such a person in the Blood Robe sect. When he returned to the ancient moon spacetime, he would also ask Divine Wood King and others for help in finding out. Brother Wushuang, we're leaving now. If you run into trouble, just mention my name. Don't hesitate, don't compromise yourself. We've got connections. We're not afraid of anything. Wu's deliberately shouted a few times in front of the Blood Demon Temple Master as he departed. It was a deliberate attempt to disgust the Blood Demon Temple Master. Of course, there was some truth to it. Mentioning his name might actually work. But Jian Wushuang didn't see the necessity anymore. With his own strength, even if he couldn't defeat peak 8th tribulation realm experts, he could escape. Speed was his advantage. No one could match him. The 3 ancient existences had all received favors from Realm King, so they wouldn't lay hands on him either. In the 9 great spacetimes, even in the entire northern spacetime, he basically had no rivals. Naturally, he wasn't worried about this. After seeing off Wuxia, Jian Wushuang glanced at the Blood Demon Temple Master, but didn't rush to inquire about Yi Lingxiao's situation. Instead, he turned and entered the cave mansion arranged for him in the Tiansong Palace, starting a brief seclusion. The time needed to repair the pyramid was delayed again after collecting the materials in Tiansong. Although he was anxious to return to the Qishan Temple, he wasn't in a hurry when it came to things that required time and effort. After all, it was related to his safety, so there was no harm in taking his time. Especially when he thought about the dark red triangular crystal. He couldn't help but feel excited. It could severely injure or even kill peak 8th tribulation experts. That was a huge trump card. And it also had the ability to nurture life. With his endless life and divine power, he could nurture powerful flesh and blood life forms. Because he wasn't a metallic life form himself, and his origin source was also flesh and blood and plant-based. He couldn't nurture metallic lifeforms like he did in the past. Anyway, as long as his strength could reach the 8th tribulation, that would be enough. He had seen the scene of locust-like 8th tribulation power before. This could be considered another trump card. The more trump cards he had, the greater his chances. The obsession with Mieshang had to be eradicated. After eradicating it, he would have the opportunity to catch his breath, to explore the northern spacetime, to go to the end of spacetime, even to the source, to see everything in this world. It would be monotonous to recall scenes of battles or to constantly be on the path of battle. Cross-legged on the jade bed in the cave mansion, Jian Wushuang indulged in the future for a while. Then he began to enter cultivation. Currently, his cultivation progress had slowed down considerably. He no longer had the rapid progress he experienced within the Wanlu divine tree. As for crossing tribulations, he was indeed prepared. It's just that the foundation of the origin source universe was too profound. It could be said that he had raised the threshold for his own tribulation too much. If he were an ordinary 6th tribulation universe master with his current strength, he could have crossed tribulations long ago, even the 8th tribulation. But he wasn't an ordinary 6th tribulation expert. Now, to cross the 7th tribulation, he needed to illuminate 3 entire universes. The second universe was not yet perfected. Each universe had to reach the perfect level of the first. This was indeed a test for him. Once the 3 universes were illuminated, his origin source Dao arena would be enhanced by 60%. A single origin source Dao arena was 40%. 2 would be 50%. 3 would be 60%. The limit of the Dao arena was to double its enhancement. That distance was quite far from him. Tiansong had once told him that the enhancement of ancient existences had reached a perfect level, but there were more than 10, even dozens, of universes opened up. The further enhancements became increasingly difficult. They didn't even know where the limit was. This was something Jian Wushuang had to explore on his own. Swish! A clone of the origin source stopped on the Tianqing mountain of the first origin source universe. There were not only the castle left behind by Weiss, but also many treasures that could be nurtured. For example, Qianluo flower, which increases basic divine power, as well as water of all things, which enhances the origin source. These treasures, if placed in mustard seeds, would be wasted. It's better to put them in one's own origin source universe, where they can continue to increase in quantity. He left many avatar clones in his origin source universe to personally manage these treasures. The avatars left behind at this moment are meant to cultivate his own origin source. Countless black holes are waiting for him to illuminate, and conveniently, there are those treasures for his use. Swish! His main body flashed and entered the skysite heavenly chessboard placed on the cliff of Tianqing Mountain. Training the origin cannot stop. The elevation of divine power would occupy his main body, wasting time. So, he dispelled the intention to cultivate divine power. The basic 1.5 million divine power is sufficient for now. On the way back to Qishan Temple, it's not too late to increase it further. Now, he wants to explore things beyond the cycle of time and space. This is not only related to his tribulation armor but also to the Starry Sky Chronicles. The chess pieces with those impressive titles on the skysite heavenly chessboard have been studied almost to completion. Under the guidance of Realm King, the cycle has been initially stabilized. Now it's just the space-time aspect. Phew! Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and immersed himself in it. Thus began a long journey of cultivation. Centuries, millennia, 10,000 years, millions of years. Time flowed like a beam of light through his fingers. Yet he felt nothing. Such is the wonder of time and space. Invisible, intangible, even more miraculous. The fusion of two illusory things is not so easy. Sitting for millions of years, when Jian Wushuang opened his eyes again, he summoned the chess pieces with divine titles with a wave of his hand. It's too mysterious. He shook his head, still unable to comprehend these chess pieces with divine or god titles. And he couldn't devour them either. It would be too wasteful. The chess pieces with impressive titles are currently very useful. He dared not move them recklessly. Was the ultimate mentioned by Rod Realm King a single ultimate? Or the ultimate of the myriad Daos? A single extreme is his ultimate sword Dao. The myriad Daos, the ultimate path, it was his extreme Dao. It seems that both have appeared on him. But he hasn't experienced the feeling of being invincible in these two aspects. Space-time cycle. The movements of the chess pieces were frozen at one point. Realm. Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered as he thought of the Realm King. Why is he called the Realm King? Isn't it because he controls the entire northern spacetime? Time and space are both in his hands. Isn't that the Realm King? Perhaps the spacetime cycle is just one of his obsessions. This obsession arose because of Mieshang. Reincarnation is because of life and death. Time and space were the paths he was supposed to take. The Emperor cultivates space, and the Universe Master cultivates time. Ultimately, they merge the two again to reach the level of spacetime. Perhaps that's not his path. Up to now, after groping around, Jian Wushuang slumped to the ground, unable to find direction, flattened the original plan. Perhaps I should go a completely new way. Jian Wushuang felt inspired, thinking about his uniqueness, having all sorts of magical powers. If he still follows the paths of his predecessors but possesses abilities surpassing theirs, it doesn't seem right no matter how you look at it. Above the tribulation realm, everything remained obscure. You'd call it divine, wouldn't you? But he'd seen several already. Let's say, the god of life. That sounds grand enough, doesn't it? Commanding life in a realm. But in terms of combat prowess, it was rather ordinary, at least in his eyes. Perhaps if Danbao created enough life secrets for you to fill, he might become more powerful. But the other party simply didn't pursue the path of strength. Jian Wushuang pondered. Though Danbao is a god, transcending the tribulation realm, he is not among cultivators. He shook his head, then thought of Weiss. Weiss's strength is formidable, incredibly so, to the point where I can't resist it, but that kind of power doesn't seem to belong to cultivators either. Above the universe masters, the space-time master, this position couldn't be considered the rank of cultivators. It was more like a divine position. To be precise, Realm King is the master of the northern spacetime, that is the master of spacetime. Forget it, if even deduction fails. I'll think about it after reaching the 9th tribulation realm. He disrupted the chessboard with a sweep of his hand, no longer bothering. But just after he disrupted the chessboard, the spacetime origin source in the middle of the board unexpectedly surged upward. The spacetime and reincarnation chess pieces condensed by the commander's emblem directly entered the spacetime origin source. The chess pieces marked with the 3 major divine emblems were now on both sides and in the middle of the main river. A terrible force of life suddenly erupted. Ha! Jian Wushuang was startled, sitting up directly. The tribulation armor on his body also flew out, separating from him. This scene stunned Jian Wushuang. However, he was unaware that the eye in the starry sky was still watching here. After sighing, it actively manipulated the sky-sight heavenly chessboard, evolving everything. The birth of a river of time and space appeared right in front of Jian Wushuang. He watched it with fascination, feeling no change in time. The precipitation of billions of years in the outside world did not change him at all, until the river of time and space completely condensed and then collapsed. Everything followed its natural course, so perfect. Crack! After the space-time origin source shattered, the chessboard also began to collapse, ultimately condensing into a point. An eye! A dark green eyeball floated in the original position of the chessboard. It was only because of that voice that Jian Wushuang's consciousness returned to his body. Phew! He gasped heavily, feeling somewhat scared by the scene just now, his body trembling uncontrollably. This was awe for the river of time and space. A complete river of time and space. In the entire northern spacetime, there was only one such river. However, it was divided into core, upper, middle, and lower sections extremely intricate. But just now, that river of time and space was complete. A great opportunity! Jian Wushuang clenched his fist, unable to stop trembling. Just as observing the collapse of a black hole had brought immense benefits, Now witnessing the birth and destruction of a river of time and space would surely be equally rewarding. His origin source surged rapidly. The framework of the second universe formed instantly. Countless treasures were poured in, and directly gave birth. Then came the birth of the third universe. Finally, when the treasures were insufficient, it came to a halt. He depleted all his origin source-type treasures. But with his cultivation realm elevated, as long as there were treasures, he could swiftly establish the third universe. This was truly a tremendous opportunity, though he couldn't fathom why the celestial chessboard suddenly transformed into this appearance. He couldn't help but tremble. Eyeball, tribulation armor. They flew towards him together. The tribulation armor was familiar, but the divine power within was immense. He found himself unable to even put it on. As for the eyeball, he couldn't comprehend it. Just a gentle touch revealed a chessboard within the eyeball. Clatter. The sky-sight heavenly chessboard appeared again. A wave of fear swept through him as the chessboard transformed into his mightiest adversary, Miesheng. Then it morphed into the eyeball again. Heavenly Tao. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. Although the river of time was destroyed, the essence of heavenly Tao remained within it. It was this eyeball, could perceive everything. What a pity, he sighed. I don't cultivate the heavenly Tao, but my heart is like the heavenly Tao, yet it's of no use. His heart followed heavenly Tao's principles, where even heaven with feelings would eventually grow old. The heavens was indifferent, and so was he. But this indifference wasn't about brotherhood or love between spouses. It was about facing the laws of heavenly Tao in all things. He lacked that compassion, like heavenly Tao, but he didn't understand balance. So it didn't suit him. Perhaps it has found someone suitable. Through the eyeball, Jian Wushuang saw a familiar figure, clad in white, untouched by dust. The heavenly mechanism. Or rather, Hu Qing. This time's gain was entirely passive. He couldn't comprehend those chess pieces and nearly fell into madness. In the end, for some reason, the chessboard turned into an eyeball, leaving behind the tribulation armor. And he witnessed a perfect cycle of time from birth to destruction. The gain was not insignificant. It was similar to what he had originally envisaged. It simulated the path ahead. My path. I'll walk it myself. Jian Wushuang's voice was resolute as he grabbed the eyeball and stowed it away. At that moment, the tribulation armor, as if acknowledging its master, returned directly to his divine body. The eyeball didn't belong to him, but the tribulation armor did. The fully enclosed tribulation armor directly covered his entire body. The black battle armor was dazzling. A dark red aura emanated from above the tribulation armor, which was the power of supreme rules. At this moment, a token appeared in his mind. The word tribulation was written above it. With a thought, he familiarized himself with the information in the token. The tribulation armor was now perfected, but his own strength couldn't keep up. The full name of the tribulation armor also appeared on this token. Ninth Tribulation Battle Armor, named after the Tribulation Realm. Currently, the Tribulation Armor contained the power of 6th Tribulation Realm, boosting the basic divine power by 1 million. The 6 Supreme Tribulations elevated the power of the Tribulation Armor to 1 million. There were still the 7th, 8th, and even the 9th Tribulations to come. At the same time, there was a sentence in the token that drove him crazy. One force shatters all laws. He initially thought it was overestimating his abilities, but now it appeared here. And he believed it. This treasure was probably left to him by teacher Xianxia. How could he not believe it? This tribulation armor gave him a vague path. Perhaps, after the 9th tribulation, he would completely see where his path lay. The tribulation armor merged into his skin, and Jian Wushuang's gaze was firm. With a flicker, he directly left his own origin source Tao arena. In that eyeball, he saw Hu Qing. When he found Hu Qing, he would give this treasure to him. After all, he couldn't use it himself. Giving it to Hu Qing would also enhance their overall combat power. And he had always been somewhat ignorant about the heavenly Tao. By then, he could also witness it through Hu Qing. Leaving the origin source Tao arena, he felt the passage of time. Billions of years passed in the blink of an eye. It was indeed a long time. The agreed-upon time by Xianxia had long passed. After calming his emotions, he couldn't wait any longer and left the cave. Just as he stepped out, he noticed a familiar figure standing on the hill outside the cave, watching the sunrise. Blood Demon Temple Master. Jian Wushuang was somewhat surprised to see the other party waiting for him. So much time had passed. Yet the other party was still in Tiansong Palace, indicating a dedication to the realm god token far beyond imagination. Perfect. He also had some matters to discuss with the other party. Approaching, bathed in the first rays of warm sunlight, the two stood side by side. I thought I would have to wait a long time, but I didn't expect you so soon. Blood Demon Temple Master turned his head and spoke first. There was a hint of a smile on his face, clearly with some intention to please. However, deep down he still harbored discontent. As long as he obtained the realm god token, he was confident of surpassing his father, Tiansong. In this world, there was no one he would willingly submit to. His ambitions were immense. People with such ambitions tended not to lack in strength. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, not rushing to inquire about the pyramid's matter. Blood Demon Temple Master, there's something I'd like to consult you about, may I? Blood Demon Temple Master, who had wanted to improve relations with Jian Wushuang, was taken aback for a moment, then pleased, immediately agreed, feel free to ask. It's about the blood aura on Yi Lingxiao. How much do you know about it? As soon as Jian Wushuang's words fell, Blood Demon Temple Master furrowed his brow. Fortunately, he had guessed what this was about and wasn't too surprised. Now that he had the realm god token, his pursuit of the blood aura wasn't as intense, so he explained why he had been chasing Yi Lingxiao. It was similar to what Jian Wushuang had thought. Both sought to forcibly enhance their divine power. He already knew this. He had also used the power of blood before. But to utilize the power of blood to forcibly enhance divine power, one needed something to assist. Like the beetle he had used before, it could absorb all the backlash into its body. Merely enhancing divine power on its own wasn't enough. So, Blood Demon Temple Master probably had a similar method. However, such things were too private and he didn't want to ask. After giving the other a deep glance, Jian Wushuang still didn't speak. Actually, it's nothing much. Yi Lingxiao's origin is the blood-colored origin source, very similar to my inheritance. If I obtain her, my basic divine power can increase by another 20%. Blood Demon Temple Master sensed Jian Wushuang's hesitation, so he didn't conceal it and directly mentioned his possession of a blood-colored inheritance. Jian Wushuang was extremely shocked to hear this, not because of the blood inheritance. A discerning person could see that. It was the increase of 20% in basic divine power that startled him. Initially, his divine power was only 200,000. Doubling it didn't seem like much. But now, or rather, Blood Demon Temple Master himself, must have at least 10 million basic divine power. 1% was 100,000, so increasing by 20% meant 2 million. The power of blood. Is it really that powerful? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but ask. Blood Demon Temple Master nodded. Blood represents the blood qi in the divine body. The enhancement of divine power relies on this. The increase of 20% is because my divine body is already at its limit. If I were to raise it to another level, I could gain even more. This time, Jian Wushuang was utterly speechless. According to the Blood Demon Temple's master, Yi Lingxiao's origin source was blood-colored, indicating room for growth. The stronger the origin source, the more beneficial it was for practitioners with blood-colored power. He would have to remind Yi Lingxiao to be cautious, to avoid exposure. The temptation was immense. Even he found himself somewhat tempted, much like how those undergoing tribulations felt upon encountering practitioners who controlled the essence of life. Irresistible. That was Yi Lingxiao, and he hailed from the ancient moon spacetime. Initially, the blood-colored power he acquired also came from the ancient moon spacetime, albeit from the Chen family in the ancient Wood continent. It was a pity that he had already wiped out the Chen family. Otherwise, he could have traced the origin of the blood-colored power As for asking the Blood Demon Temple's master, it was unnecessary. If there were a source, this guy would likely have found it already. Perhaps Yi Ling Xiao knew. After reconsidering everything, Jian Wushuang stopped asking further questions. This matter might be an episode or perhaps an opportunity to enhance divine power. Once everyone gathered, he would inquire through Wan Yen to understand the situation, appealing to emotions and logic. He also needed to gauge others' opinions. In any case, haste was not advisable in such matters. After discussing the blood-colored power, there was nothing else significant to talk about with the other party, so he let the Blood Demon Temple's master take him to find Tiansong. The repair of the pyramid had been completed millions of years ago. Swish! Following the Blood Demon Temple master, Jian Wushuang quickly arrived amidst the clouds and mist above Tiansong Palace. This was where Tiansong's origin source Dao Arena was located. While at Tiansong Palace, he would relocate the Dao Arena from within his body. Of course, what he moved out was the main universe. The main universe, the first condensed universe, subsequent origin universes were called subsidiary universes. With the Dao Arena's blessing, practitioners within Tiansong Palace could benefit greatly. After all, it was an eternal being's origin source universe. Having comprehended the Dao up to the 9th tribulation realm, in the entire northern spacetime only 3 people had reached this level. If not for urgency, Jian Wushuang also wanted to cultivate here for a while. The dojo was magnificent, surrounded by melodious sounds. It was extremely comfortable. Behind the Dao Arena, there was a small courtyard surrounded by fences. Tiansong usually practiced there. Generally, the lectures in the Dao Arena were given by avatars, and the true self rarely appeared. This was why it was such a mysterious place that had existed for eternity. Ordinary people could never see the true form. Even if it was an avatar, only the lords of the universes in Tiansong Palace could see it. Throughout Tiansong Palace, the number of universe lords was actually not many. Compared to the millions and millions of other sects, Tiansong Palace had only about 100,000. While passing through the Dao Arena, Jian Wushuang noticed. Tiansong Palace still followed an elite route, not accepting everyone indiscriminately. Most were elites among their peers. Each possessed formidable divine power. This was why there was a constant stream of super-strong individuals being born. Just the universe masters at the 6th tribulation numbered in the thousands, indicating the depth of Tiansong Palace. Based on this number, there were probably only dozens of universe masters at the 7th tribulation. 8th tribulation ones were even rarer, perhaps only a few. There was no way around it. The current level of life was insufficient. In the future, there would be more 8th tribulation experts. It would become more and more exciting. As the two landed in the courtyard, they saw Tiansong, who had already opened the courtyard door, smiling and waiting for Jian Wushuang. Senior Tiansong, thank you for your trouble. Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude promptly upon landing. This time, he really owed him a big favor. Repairing the pyramid was one of his top priorities, even more important than harnessing the power of blood. Upon hearing this, Tiansong waved his hand dismissively. It's just a small effort. Anything that can be done is not a big deal. On the contrary, I feel guilty for having Jian Wushuang use the Realm God token this time. Don't say that. After exchanging pleasantries, Tiansong sent away the Blood Demon Temple Master, and then invited Jian Wushuang into the courtyard. There was a plain wooden table and 2 small chairs in the courtyard. Extremely simple. For an ordinary person, it might signify poverty, but for a strong cultivator, it was a virtue. It was simplicity, plain and unadorned. The two sat down together, and Elder Tiansong took out the tea leaves he cultivated and brewed the tea himself. As they drank tea, they discussed the matter of the pyramid. Wushuang, take a look. Tiansong held out the pyramid, which spun in the palm of his hand and flew towards Jian Wushuang. The previously existing indentations on the top were also repaired. Most importantly, Jian Wushuang unexpectedly sensed a faint vitality within it. Jian Wushuang stared at the pyramid in astonishment. What's this? Although the vitality was weak, it couldn't escape his mental power. It was definitely the aura of life. Haha, this time it's also lucky. I didn't expect to obtain a metal brain from an old friend. I tried putting it into the pyramid, and it unexpectedly matched well. With its presence, all you need to do is infuse it with the power of life to enhance the level of the metal brain. This way, the mechanical pyramid can be continuously improved. Tianzong explained. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but stand up again and bow deeply. Truly helped him a lot. This pyramid might not be able to assist eternal beings, but it was of great help to him. Seeing this, Tianzong quickly stopped Jian Wushuang. At the same time, he also realized that Jian Wushuang was someone who repaid kindness and felt that he had gained a lot from this transaction. Not only did he obtain the Realm God token, but he also established karmic ties with Jian Wushuang, Wuxia, and others. In the future, these people would achieve great things no less than him, and they would naturally remember this favor. When they arrived at the Realm God continent, they would help each other. Jian Wushuang was delighted to find the metal brain in the pyramid, which could give birth to mechanical life in the future, continuously repair the pyramid, and even improve its level in the future. How could this not make him happy? As soon as he got it, he couldn't help but play with it, using his mental power to manipulate the pyramid. Tianzong also saw that Jian Wushuang was no longer interested in reminiscing, so he didn't say much more. After becoming familiar with the pyramid, Jian Wushuang thanked Tianzong again and prepared to leave. I know you have important matters to attend to, so I won't keep you. But if you need help, you must ask. Don't be polite. Tianzong's expression was firm, obviously not just saying polite words. Jian Wushuang was also not polite. Senior Tianzong, rest assured, if I need help, I will definitely ask for it. I won't hesitate to trouble you. Good. Keep the token safe. We'll discuss more in the future. Definitely. Jian Wushuang leaped into the air and waved goodbye. He tore through the space directly and left Tianzong Palace. After arriving in Tianzong Domain, he took out the pyramid and began to travel at full speed, heading towards the ancient moon spacetime. Now, inside the pyramid, the surrounding space was neatly arranged. With a casual swipe of his hand, he created a cave, then separated several more caves. Once everyone gathered, they each had their own cave to cultivate in. In addition to the caves, he also created a huge courtyard. There were fighting areas, cultivation areas, and places to rest. In the middle of the courtyard was a not-too-big control room. At this moment, Jian Wushuang stood in the control room, facing a huge screen that displayed the scene outside the pyramid. Beside him was a floating metal brain, a crystal ball without limbs. It was similar to the one Babidi had. Master! The voice from the crystal ball wasn't as cold as imagined. Instead, it had emotions. Jian Wushuang touched it and infused a large amount of life force and divine power into the crystal ball. The crystal ball instantly turned green. A pair of eyes also appeared inside the ball. This startled Jian Wushuang, but then he remembered the metal brain from before, which could also change its shape. He asked, "Can you change your appearance at will?" "Of course." The metal brain transformed into an extremely ugly little monster. Jian Wushuang quickly persuaded, "Forget it. Let's return to your original appearance." As soon as he finished speaking, the metal brain reverted to its original form. Thinking that he hadn't given the other party a name yet, Jian Wushuang hesitated for a moment, and a glint flashed in his eyes. "I'll call you Babata from now on. Let's commemorate Babidi." "All right." The light brain wobbled a bit, seeming somewhat excited. Jian Wushuang glanced at the light brain and casually crafted a metal puppet. Although its appearance wasn't anything remarkable, it looked much more pleasing to the eye compared to the transformations the light brain could make. "Babata, from now on, you'll reside within this puppet." The puppet had two bent horns, a slender yet symmetrical figure, and eyes similar to Babidi's, but with dark red skin and a stylish cloak. Babata entered it, feeling extremely happy. After circling around the control room for a few laps, he stopped and obediently stood beside Jian Wushuang. Having such a convenient metallic life form, Jian Wushuang almost entirely delegated the task of controlling the pyramid to Babata. Seated on the throne, Jian Wushuang crossed his legs and said, Bab-Atta, explain to me thoroughly the functions of the pyramid. Yes, master. Bab-Edi raised his hand, and a sky screen appeared above. The sky screen listed all the functions of the pyramid. Originally, the pyramid was named Gustav's Tribe Flying Ship. The name was a bit lengthy, so Jian Wushuang, being accustomed to calling it the pyramid, decided to change it. Bab-Atta casually took out a small stick and pointed to the sky screen. Master, let me first guide you through the protective functions and speed aspects of the pyramid. All right. Jian Wushuang nodded, sipping wine as he listened to Bab-Atta's explanation. The defense of the pyramid was quite simple. It required immense divine power to form a shield, somewhat akin to the shield of life of Danbao. Currently, the shield's level was the universe level. Universe-level shields were categorized into stars, black holes, and mysteries. A star-level shield could withstand attacks of tens of millions of divine power, the lowest tier of shields. Top-tier experts of the Eight Tribulation could break through with consecutive attacks. Its upper limit was 10 million divine power, but it couldn't withstand the relentless bombardment of experts with 8 million divine power. The maximum defense could withstand attacks from ordinary Eighth Tribulation realm experts. Then there's the black hole level shield. Currently, the pyramid could only deploy a shield at the level of a black hole. It could withstand attacks of up to 15 million units of divine power. Once the shield is broken, further attacks on the pyramid could weaken the assault, but it would also cause damage to the pyramid itself. When the Blood Demon Temple Master attacked them before, the pyramid's autonomous shield was at this level. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang couldn't sit still and quickly asked the question that concerned him the most. Bab-Atta, isn't the pyramid itself capable of absorbing divine power attacks? Master, absorbing divine power attacks requires a kind of essence called Black Radiance Essence, and the absorbed attacks would also harm the pyramid itself. In simple terms, activating the Star Shield can absorb attacks below 10 million divine power, but it will consume the Black Radiance Essence. Once the Black Radiance Essence is depleted, it can no longer absorb. After Bab-Atta finished explaining, Jian Wushuang slumped into the throne. This was quite different from what he had imagined. There are no free lunches in the world. Absorbing divine power attacks could empower the shield and create life warriors. But it requires a more special treasure. Black Radiance Essence. He had no idea what that was. Master, don't worry. The Black Radiance Essence can be said to be the energy center of the pyramid's interior, and it is needed in all aspects. With a flick of his hand, Bab-Atta pulled out the internal structure diagram of the pyramid and continued to explain, pointing at the blueprint. After talking about defense, let's talk about offense. The divine power required for attacks also needs the support of Black Radiance Essence. Otherwise, pure divine power cannot reach that level of power. The levels of attack are similar to defense. There are 4 levels in the cosmic realm: Star, Black Hole, Secret Realm, and Universe. To unleash a star attack, one must first inject 10 million divine power, and then, with the addition of Black Radiance Essence, it can erupt into a true peak attack, capable of severely injuring an ordinary peak 8th Tribulation expert. It can even instantly kill top-tier experts of the 8th Tribulation realm. A black hole attack can reach up to 15 million divine power. The pyramid's attack is currently at the customized Secret Realm level, with divine power reaching up to 20 million. Of course, it also consumes a lot of Black Radiance Essence. When the Blood Demon Temple Master attacked the pyramid, triggering its self-defense mechanism, the resulting attack was at the Secret Realm level, similar to the power of the attack on Qi Juxiao back then. As for the Universe level, it requires even more Black Radiance Essence, which the pyramid currently doesn't have in such abundance. After listening to the explanations on defense and attack, Jian Wushuang couldn't sit still anymore and hurriedly asked, "What exactly is the Black Radiance Essence?" Now he understood that the operation of the pyramid depended on this thing. He needed to get more of it. The Black Radiance Essence is an extremely dark substance, a special product of the mechanical clan, similar to the origin source of cultivators. To be precise, it is the primordial stone bred within the Master's universe. Jian Wushuang slapped his head. Knowing its origin, he felt dumbfounded. Where was he going to get it? There probably wasn't any in the entire northern spacetime. Old man Tiansong must be aware of this, yet he hadn't mentioned it proactively, indicating he didn't have it either. Realm God Continent. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up as he thought of the Realm God Continent. There were strong beings from the 4 major spacetimes there. Surely there must be members of the Machine Clan there. Even the powerful beings from the Starry Sky practiced there. All the gods of the northern spacetime were in the Realm God Continent. Perhaps he could only get it there. But now his Realm God token had been given away. Even if it hadn't, he couldn't possibly go to the Realm God Continent now. Babata, how much Black Radiance essence is left now? There are 17 units left. Can it sustain a secret realm-level attack? It can sustain 1 secret realm-level attack, 17 black hole-level attacks, and 170 star-level attacks. Babata explained in detail. Universe-level attacks required 100 units of essence of Black Radiance, and they could only be used after the pyramid was fully repaired. He didn't dare to think about that. Sustaining 1 secret realm-level attack was probably enough. But he couldn't use the secret realm-level shield anymore, only the black hole-level shield. As for divine power, that was simple. He could create a divine power avatar and continuously infuse it with divine power. The pyramid still had one crucial function left, producing life warriors. This also required Black Radiance essence. Star-level life warriors possessed tens of millions of divine power. If he wanted to create a perfect star-level warrior with defenses and attacks comparable to a peak 8th Tribulation Realm expert, he would need 10 units of Black Radiance essence. Jian Wushuang immediately dismissed this idea. It was too extravagant. He didn't lack life or divine power. What he lacked were Black Radiance essences, and the perfect star-level warrior required some treasures from the Machine Clan to refine its body. That was what he lacked. A series of bad news made his mood plummet. Babata sensed his low spirits. Master, don't be sad. The consumption of Black Radiance essence during the journey is minimal. Currently, maintaining the speed of the black hole level will only consume 1 unit of Black Radiance essence per era. If the earlier news was considered bad, then this was indeed good news. Jian Wushuang sighed weakly. How long does it take to reach the Qishan Temple? He blurted out Qishan Temple subconsciously, and immediately regretted it. He didn't even know its location. How could Babata? But to his surprise, Babata immediately calculated the time. To reach the Qishan Temple, it will take 4 eras, passing through 27 main currents of the middle reaches of the northern spacetime. There is a high probability of encountering a 6th Tribulation Universe Master. I have already planned the route for you, Master. Babata moved a piece of sky in front of Jian Wushuang, displaying a winding route on top. Jian Wushuang was suddenly delighted. Babata, you actually know the coordinates of the Qishan Temple? Master's life force contains causality. I can sense the position of the Qishan Temple, as well as the ancient moon spacetime that Master wants to go to. I can predict both, Babata explained proudly. This time, Jian Wushuang felt like he had hit the jackpot. He also experienced the convenience of the Machine Clan. It was basically like walking while lying down. Everything was arranged for him. Now, how long until we reach the primordial white heaven in the ancient moon spacetime? And where are we currently? Jian Wushuang asked a series of questions. But Babata casually replied, currently, we are in the Tiansong Eternal Realm. It will take another 2 spacetime rivers to reach the ancient moon spacetime, and at our current speed, it will take 400 years. As for universe masters in the vicinity, there is one of the 6th Tribulation Realm, 10 universes away from the pyramid. Within the diameter of the pyramid, there are approximately 174 universe masters. There is no threat or enemy to master, so please relax as we proceed. 30 years later, we will encounter the influence of a strong 8th Tribulation expert, and then we will activate stealth flight. The detailed plan impressed Jian Wushuang greatly. Finally receiving some good news, he comforted himself. Jian Wushuang shrugged and stood up. Babata, activate the concealed flight directly and head to the primordial white heaven of ancient moon spacetime at the fastest speed possible. and find the location of this blessed land. With Babada's presence, he no longer needed to painstakingly search for the specific location of the Tongtian Buddha's cave. He delegated everything to Babada. He then returned to his cave residence. He wouldn't waste the 400 years of time. The promotion of the origin source couldn't be delayed. With 3 universes reaching completion, he could face the 7th tribulation. Although his realm had reached a certain level, the lack of treasures slowed down his advancement. He dared not delay. Moreover, he obtained Wes's ultimate secret technique, Extreme Freedom Intent Technique. Although only the first half, it was still difficult to comprehend. It would be considered good if he could master it at the 7th tribulation realm. For now, he needed to familiarize himself with it. Once mastered, his combat power would increase exponentially. The Extreme Freedom Intent Technique consists of 5 levels: Initiation, Minor Achievement, Major Achievement, Peak, and Completion. The first half covers Initiation, Minor Achievement, and Major Achievement. According to Weiss, reaching the Major Achievement at the 9th Tribulation Realm would make him practically invincible. As for the latter half, it depended on fate. This fate lay within the Realm God continent. But that was too distant. He didn't know how long he would have to wait. Instead of dwelling on it, he started to familiarize himself with the Extreme Freedom Intent Technique to see what it could truly bring him. From observing Weiss's demonstrations, he could only discern that it was a combat-oriented secret technique. It was special in that it could overcome opponents of the same level or even different strength. That was the peculiarity of the Extreme Freedom Intent Technique. On the way to Ancient Moon Spacetime, he devoted himself entirely to the Extreme Freedom Intent Technique. Returning to the Qixin Temple, repairing the pyramid was the first step. Afterward, he still had to undergo tribulations, becoming the universe master of the 7th tribulation, then enhancing his basic divine power. Finally, it was the Extreme Freedom Intent Technique, mastering the Extreme Freedom Intent Technique to initiation. By then, if he couldn't match Miashang, he could still overcome him with the Extreme Freedom Intent Technique. Apart from these general goals, he also had his own secret techniques to cultivate. The first 2 sword moves of the Starry Sky Chronicles had already been perfected. The Reincarnation sword was still somewhat difficult. But he understood much more about the 4th sword move, Spacetime, compared to Reincarnation, and it was more adept in his hands. This was largely thanks to the Skysight heavenly chessboard. By simulating to the end, witnessing the birth and destruction of the River of Time, his perception of time grew, and he gained insight into the establishment of subsidiary universes through spacetime. The Starry Sky Chronicles, the first 5 sword moves, they weren't necessarily ranked. Like the first sword move, it could mean death or life. The 3rd sword move could represent reincarnation or spacetime. The 5th sword move had to be about spacetime reincarnation. It was the continuation of the Tao. Even though the 6th sword wasn't bound to any specific Tao, he could sense that when the 6th sword emerged, it could rival eternal beings. It was the stance of an invincible sword. But first, he needed to perfect his Tao cultivation. Only after mastering spacetime reincarnation could he truly achieve invincibility with the 6th sword move. In simple terms, there was no need to cultivate the 6th sword move. It was about going with the flow. Of the 9 sword moves in the Starry Sky Chronicles, he had a direction for the first 6 sword moves, but he had no clue about the following 3. Those would have to be deciphered later. Apart from the Starry Sky Chronicles, he also had the Eternal Ancient Transformation to cultivate. Currently, the Super Eternal Ancient Transformation hadn't reached their perfect state. At the peak of perfection, the Super Eternal Ancient Transformation could amplify divine power 100-fold. Following that logic, with a base divine power doubling every 50-fold, once it reached perfection it would double twice, resulting in a quadruple increase in base divine power. His current base divine power was 1,500,000. That was the divine power of his divine body. Wearing the tribulation armor added another million. That also added to the divine body. So, his base divine power came to 2.5 million. Using the Super Eternal Ancient Transformation would double that. That made it 5 million. At that time, his divine power would be 7.5 million. With the blessings of the origin source Tao Arena and the 3 major universes, it would increase by 60%. Adding another 4.5 million. That would make it 12 million divine power. As a universe master of the 6th tribulation realm, 12 million divine power equaled the peak power of the 8th tribulation realm. And that didn't even count the divine power he would gain after successfully transcending the tribulation. With all this progress, he had the hope of rivaling perfected 8th tribulation experts. That is, those with over 15 million divine power. The Blood Demon Temple Master barely reached this level. While cultivating, he also planned his progress. The Eternal Ancient Transformation and the Starry Sky Chronicles were also being continuously practiced. The power of the Beast God, which he had relied on initially, had somewhat fallen into disuse. The power of the Beast God was indeed a valuable treasure. It had played a significant role from the Tao Lord to now. Without the super-eternal ancient transformation, it wouldn't have been replaced. It was a pity that it was now neglected. However, Jian Wushuang temporarily couldn't think of a better way. If I could still use the power of the Beast God after using the super-eternal ancient transformation, that would be great. With this idea in mind, Jian Wushuang actually tried several times, but unfortunately all failed, which was normal. After using the super-eternal ancient transformation, the burden on the divine body had reached its limit, and using the power of the Beast God again was impossible. Not only could the divine body not support it, but even the Beast God armor couldn't either. Initially, in the Moro spacetime, the Qixin Temple had refined 9 great Beast God armors. The Candle Dragon was just one of them. If he could collect the other Beast God armors, perhaps he could support the super-eternal ancient transformation. By then, he would only need to enhance his divine body a bit more, and it was really possible to cover it together. Super-eternal ancient transformation plus the power of the Beast God. It was scary to even think about. Moro spacetime, Qixin Temple, Beast God armors. Jian Wushuang clenched his fist, burying this idea in his heart as well. Miashang had transactions with the Qixin Temple. It was possible to encounter Qixin. Ancient moon spacetime, the primordial white heaven among the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Different from other places, the primordial white heaven was the most stable and undamaged space in the entire ancient moon spacetime. Even the gates of the ancient moon divine religion were stationed here. In terms of overall strength, it was much stronger than the ancient Wood continent in the past. But compared to the top powers of the ancient Wood continent now, it was almost the same. Because of the strength of divine Wood King and the joining of Lord Hengmu, the current ancient Wood continent was in its infancy, gathering many universe masters. It had a momentum to surpass the primordial white heaven. However, the ancient moon sect didn't care about this at all. In the primordial white heaven, it wasn't just the ancient moon religion. There was also an 8-star sect. Bai Divine Mountain, established by the patriarch of the Bai family in the primordial white heaven. When it came to Bai Divine Mountain, no one would think of the Bai family patriarch. Instead, they would mention the contemporary pope of the ancient moon religion. She was from the Bai family, a universe master at the peak of the 8th tribulation realm. She was also the current strongest in the ancient Wood continent.